Yes, it's quite funny, really, that the Prime Minister was at a cricket pavilion, I believe, because he is on rather a sticky wicket. Yes, it was fascinating sort of language that he was using, because in some ways it's Keir Starmer on home turf, as you say, not only being sort of pointedly loyally about exactly what happened when, but also wanging on about public service, a deceited public life, which I think is exactly the point at which he becomes the most unattractive to a country that already, frankly, loathes him. Look, I mean, the Prime Minister is in the sort of terminal stage of his premiership. It's like one of those university questions. When was the actual fall of the Roman Empire? Whenever Keir Starmer stops being Prime Minister, most likely at some point this year, this will be seen as one of the key moments in his fall, because he has no credibility with his backbenchers, with the country. There's nobody, I think, beyond the sort of one or two sort of aides who still trust him within the number 10 Fuhrermonger, who actually want him to remain as Prime Minister. You know, I would say, if I was, Morgan McSweeney, I would tell the Prime Minister to go now and hope the two of them can go and fade sort of into history rather than having to keep on going fighting, because, you know, nobody wants him to remain, and I don't see why he would want to either.
It's interesting you say you can't see him finishing the year as Prime Minister. I mean, you sound quite confident that's going to be the case.
Well, I think the only reason why he would stay on as Prime Minister is either that Labour MPs are sufficiently convinced that there isn't a potential successor within their ranks, or simply because no Labour Prime Minister has previously been toppled by their MPs using a sort of formal sort of vote of confidence / leadership election process. And in that sense, you know, it would be historically unprecedented for Starmer to be toppled by his MPs like that. But then that was the same case when Mrs Thatcher was brought down by her MPs in 1990. You know, all of these things have to happen for the first time, and he is going to face some absolutely horrible local elections in May.
But we keep hearing the Prime Minister saying, if I knew then what I know now, I would never been anywhere, he would have never been anywhere near government, talking about Mandelson, obviously. The thing is, he did know.
Yes.
And everybody knows he knew.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that he's, you know, admitted that he knew that Mandelson's connections with Epstein's continued after his conviction, the fact that this information was publicly available, as Kemi Badenoch pointed out yesterday, it was all available on Google. You know, the Conservative Research Department, that august institution, could go out and find it. You know, the fact that the Prime Minister didn't know, or the fact that he's covering up the fact that he did know, means that he's either an idiot or a liar. And that, again, is not somebody who's sustainable as the First Minister of the United Kingdom.
Well, William, I mentioned some of the lawyerly language that he was using. We've got a clip of just one of these answers that the Prime Minister gave in the press conference some moments ago. I want to replay this and just dissect. This is really important. Just dissect some of the language that he's been using here. Let's have a listen.
It's precisely why, when we were going through the appointment process for the ambassador role, we asked questions about the nature and extent of that relationship. And what I didn't say yesterday, partly inhibited by the approach of the police, is that that is precisely why those questions were asked. Questions about the nature and extent of the relationship, whether Mandelson had stayed, as was suggested, at Epstein's premises. And the answers given to those questions were intentionally intended to create the impression that Mandelson barely knew Epstein, deliberately to create that impression. I had no reason at that stage to think that was anything other than the truth, and therefore we proceeded.
Wow. So just to recap, the Prime Minister there saying that the vetting included asking Peter Mandelson if he had stayed at the premises of the convicted paedophile Jeffrey Epstein after his conviction. And what the Prime Minister just said there was not no. It's not that Peter Mandelson said, no, I didn't stay at the premises of the convicted paedophile. It was, and these words, I'm going to get them exactly right, intentionally intended to create the impression that Mandelson barely knew Epstein. Intentionally intended to create the impression. Now, that's the Prime Minister trying to give you the impression that Mandelson lied to him, saying, no, I didn't stay at the house, but not using the words, no, I didn't stay at the house. William, I mean, this is the most lawyerly deception I've heard from a Prime Minister in some time.
Yes, I mean, it's a sort of bizarre word fudge, isn't it? I mean, you could sort of interpret that sort of sentence in a variety of ways, I think, because you become lost halfway through it. It's like sort of, it's trapped in subclauses and all the rest. Look, I mean, Keir Starmer doesn't want to answer a sort of yes or no question, because doing so would admit that either, you know, Peter Mandelson made a chump of him, or he did know that Peter Mandelson had stayed. Peter Mandelson had stayed at Epstein's home, and he still appointed him. But either way, you know, it was clearly a ludicrous decision to appoint him in the first place. And I hold up my hands as being, you know, a journalist myself. You know, there were far too many journalists, commentators, SW1 types who cheered on the appointment of Mandelson, saying it was, you know, a wonderful move. But, you know, the fact is this man had to resign from government twice before. You know, we knew he had various dodgy connections. We knew he'd been a friend of the world's most famous paedophile. Why was he ever our ambassador to the United States in the first place?
And I keep coming back to, it was public knowledge that Mandelson stayed at Epstein's flat in Manhattan in 2009, the year after he was convicted of being a paedophile, basically paraphrasing the actual charge. But, and it was also in the Financial Times, and Cabinet Secretary Chris Wormald presented the Prime Minister with a dossier that contained all the reports that the press had put together. So that would have been handed to Keir Starmer, even if our Prime Minister didn't read the national newspapers, which, as a former newspaper journalist, I would think was pretty much a hanging offence in any case. Even if he didn't read the Financial Times back in 2023, he was handed a dossier with those cuttings in it. He didn't read that either.
And it wasn't just the FT. I mean, I've got the articles in front of me. Headline: links between Peter Mandelson and Jeffrey Epstein detailed in JP Morgan report. A report from JP Morgan detailed in the Financial Times in June 2023, a year and a half before the appointment. The Guardian reported this as well. Bank report details Peter Mandelson's apparent contact with Jeffrey Epstein. The newspaper, The Independent, said Lord Mandelson stayed at Epstein's New York home in June 2009. This wasn't hidden in corners of the internet. No. This was in national newspapers, and the Prime Minister says, what was his exact quote again? Not that Peter Mandelson denies this, but intentionally intended to create the impression that Mandelson barely knew Epstein. I mean, come on, Prime Minister.
Oh, you had to be willfully blind. You had to be very, very, very keen indeed to appoint Peter Mandelson to ignore all of that evidence in front of him.
He's a forensic barrister. He goes through all these things with a fine-tooth comb, doesn't he?
Well, that's what we'd hope. Maybe, in fact, he is spending all his time, I don't know, sitting around watching Arsenal and Adolescence and all the rest. You know, it kind of explains, I suppose, why the country is in the state that it currently is.
How can he, though? I mean, with all joking aside, William, how can he stand in the House yesterday and in the press conference today and continue with the deceit that he knew nothing?
Because I think he's managed to lie to himself, and of course that's the most important person that you have to lie to. I think he has such a high opinion of himself, of his nobility, of his legal standing and all the rest, that he stands on that principle. He can't possibly believe that he was either lied to or he was incompetent or he ignored the evidence in front of him. And I think that's why he is clearly a failure as a Prime Minister, and he's clearly unable to respond properly to the crisis unfolding before him.
OK, William, well, thank you very much indeed. We're just going to speak now to the Deputy Political Editor at the Financial Times, Jim Pickard. Jim, I'm delighted we can speak to you now because I've got one of your articles right in front of me on my computer here. It's dated June the 21st, 2023. It's when you reported that Peter Mandelson stayed at Jeffrey Epstein's home in Manhattan after his conviction as a paedophile. And now the Prime Minister is attempting to say that the wool was pulled over his eyes despite your and many other journalists' fine reporting on this matter.
I think the thing about that is that a lot of articles are written and a lot of articles are read by some people, not by everybody. And you could say that, you know, there's no reason why Keir Starmer, leader of the opposition, should have read one story in the FT on one particular day. It was 2,000 words long. It probably took a little while to read. Except that there was a press conference by Starmer exactly 2 years ago in Bristol in some kind of industrial factory. And the journalists there all had one question. The question I asked was along the lines of, we, the FT, have reported that Peter Mandelson stayed in Jeffrey Epstein's luxury mansion in 2009 in Manhattan while Epstein was literally in jail at the time. Do you think that Lord Mandelson has questions to answer? And the response from Keir Starmer, who at the time was the leader of the opposition, was basically, you know more about this than I do. And this is why that question was raised by Kemi Badenoch, the Tory leader at Prime Minister's Questions yesterday, because it does suggest that he did know about that. And the question I was hoping somebody might have asked at the press conference today was, after I asked that question, did Keir Starmer ask people about this? Did he Google the story? Did he have any curiosity in it at all? And the answer seems to be kind of no.
He was literally handed a dossier with the press cuttings in it as well. His own civil servants have said, yes, we made the information available to him.
I think the answer to this is that we have a Prime Minister who was a long-standing public servant as the DPP. He's somebody who's not that interested in politics. And he basically outsourced a lot of the political management of his project to Morgan McSweeney, his chief of staff, and to various Blairite allies, a lot of whom are old, long-standing friends of Peter Mandelson. You cannot underestimate the extent to which Lord Peter Mandelson was a political mentor to Morgan McSweeney for years and years and years, giving advice on all sorts of things. If you look at the reshuffle that took place only 4 months ago, which saw Johnny Reynolds moved out of business, it saw Lucy Powell sacked, it saw Ed Miliband, they attempted to move Ed Miliband and he refused to budge. It was a sort of massacre of a handful of soft left figures such as Justin Madders. It had Lord Mandelson's fingerprints all over it. And therefore, I think, of course, the buck stops with Keir Starmer, but the questions are really, why was he relying so much on Morgan McSweeney for an awful lot of his politics, and why could he have not overridden his main advisor?
Look, there is a real problem here with the political brand of Keir Starmer. The reason why he became Prime Minister, I think we can distill it down to this contrast between sort of the Partygate Tories versus Mr. Rules, Mr. Ethics, Mr. Propriety. Keir Starmer built his entire brand on being whiter than white, cleaner than clean. And yet now we learn that as soon as something that was unethical and mildly inconvenient to him came along, he didn't want to see it. He didn't want to hear about it. He didn't want to know. He spoke to you, Jim. He disregarded your question at that press conference. He clearly disregarded the newspapers that were handed to him. I mean, this fundamentally, this is why it's so damaging to him. This cuts to the very core of who he has presented himself to be to the British people, and it's a lie.
I think the tragedy for Keir Starmer is that these events were all 15 years ago under a totally different New Labour administration and way back beyond then. And he, if we government information to Jeffrey Epstein while he was a cabinet minister, but there's also the money trail that the FT revealed on Friday and Saturday night, which was that there was $75,000 of payments from Epstein to Mandelson, and also big payments to Ronaldo, his husband. It's the combination of leaking stuff to Epstein, but also having been paid by Epstein, which makes it so explosive. Now, if we just had that story, it would have been an astonishing story if Mandelson had not come back last year, if he'd just been a big New Labour figure from the past. But the thing that makes this such an enormous scandal was this decision to bring him back out of obscurity. He'd been making money for his business, Global Counsel. Keir Starmer, on Morgan McSweeney's recommendation, brought Mandelson back into the heart of public life in the plum diplomatic job of Washington ambassador. And that is the way that he has shot himself in the foot and made the scandal so much worse for himself, because it's become about his judgment.
Jim, do you think this will bring the government down? Do you think it will bring Keir Starmer down? I mean, he seemed pretty determined to fight on this morning.
So when people started texting me from within the Labour Party a couple of days ago, saying he's toast, he's done for, he's finished, I was very surprised, and I thought it was possibly a bit of an overreaction to a story which is still fundamentally about the transgressions of Peter Mandelson, of which Keir Starmer is genuinely, legitimately disgusted and appalled. You can see it in every appearance that Starmer has made. That I totally believe him when he says that he is shocked and horrified by these revelations. But then I thought to myself, think where the Labour Party is right now in the opinion polls, think where Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves are in terms of public perceptions of them and their ratings. This has come along at a time when Keir Starmer is very, very vulnerable, and the Parliamentary Labour Party, who are all worried about keeping their seats at the next general election, were already febrile. There was already all this talk about leadership challenges before this scandal hit them. And again, that's why I think it's feeling a bit 50-50 at the moment.
OK, Jim, I mean, we're concentrating on Starmer here, but Blair, Brown, there were 3 Labour Prime Ministers involved in this. They created the monster, and I think it's fairly fair to call Mandelstein a monster now. They created this monster between them. But their monster, a bit like Frankenstein, is now destroying all of them. We haven't heard a word from Tony Blair yet, have we?
We haven't heard anything from Tony Blair. Interestingly, nothing's come out about Blair and the DOJ files, of which I think he'll be quite relieved. And I think it's quite unfair for you to sort of portray Mandelson and Gordon Brown as joined at the hip. I mean, they were, of course, part of the trio that... Well, they found a new Labour together. They started hating each other. They are such different people. Whatever you think of Gordon Brown, whether you're a fan of him or whether you're a critic, he is somebody who is not remotely interested in wealth and the trappings of hanging out with rich billionaires and that kind of thing. He is somebody who I think, love him or hate him, is genuinely devoted himself to public service, which is not quite the picture we're getting here from.
No, but it was Gordon Brown that brought Mandelson back into public life in 2008.
I mean, what's quite interesting, you can see the similarities here between Starmer and Brown. They're quite similar in certain ways. They're both quite wooden communicators. They're people of, kind of sort of Presbyterian values, homespun morals, sense of public duty, lacking that kind of killer touch when it comes to the really dirty work of politics. And therefore, you could see Gordon Brown brought back Mandelson to give his administration that sharp edge. Keir Starmer brought in Mandelson, or relied on his advice behind the scenes before he was an ambassador, for that sharp political edge. But unfortunately, some of these characters with a sharp political edge also come with an awful lot of baggage.
And that's the thing. I mean, ultimately, it's clear what the Prime Minister did, in my view, which was think, in this occasion, there's a pro and a con column. The con column is all of the victims of Jeffrey Epstein, and the pro column is we've got a political mover and shaker in Washington. And he made the decision that perhaps a Prime Minister who presented himself as a less ethical person could have got away with saying, you know what, it's really sad what happened with Epstein and all the rest of it. I'm making a decision that's going to prioritise jobs over victims. But Keir Starmer sort of did that and never admitted to it. And it seems to run against the core of his character. It's just so peculiar.
Yeah, they obviously thought that Peter Mandelson would find it a lot easier dealing with the kind of right-wing figures in the Trump administration and some of the American oligarchs circling that administration than would a kind of FCDO, classic bureaucratic diplomat. That was, of course, the calculation. Now, one thing we haven't mentioned is that in the press conference this morning by Keir Starmer, he gave a lot of answers on the whole Mandelson scandal. There was a very interesting bit there where he was asked basically about the vetting process last autumn, and he said that basically he had asked about this story in the FT about Peter Mandelson staying at Epstein's mansion in New York in 2009. Now, Starmer didn't, he said he'd asked about it. He didn't explicitly say what Mandelson said next. Yeah. He didn't say whether Mandelson denied it or confirmed it. And I think that non-denial that we heard about 40 minutes ago is possibly going to require an awful lot more questions.
Jim.
And none of the journalists there asked the question, but I'd love to know what the real answer is.
Just before you came on, we did replay that clip, and we used his exact, slightly peculiar words, intentionally intended to create the impression of that Mandelson barely knew Epstein. That was in the response to the staying in the flat question. I mean, I completely agree with your analysis there. That is a non-denial, a classic of the sort.
Okay.
Jim Pickard, thanks indeed for joining us.
Thank you very much. OK. Now, let's move on to lots more to come on today's show. Illegal working surges across Britain with barbers, nail bars and delivery drivers, there's a thing, firing line as rates hit record highs. All of that and much more to come. This is a GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello, very good day to you. This is your GB News weather update coming to you from the Met Office. Lots more cloudy, wet weather to come as we go through today for many of us, and even some hill snow across northern parts as well. Watch out for some strong blustery winds as well. There is an area of low pressure to the southwest of us. This was named Storm Leonardo by the Portuguese Met Office. Now, it's not going to bring us stormy weather, but nonetheless it is fairly unsettled. And like I say, a lot of cloud around for most of us, just some glimmers of sunshine towards the northwest of Scotland, and plenty of rain. Rainfall totals building up across parts of the southwest in particular, likely to see some flooding across parts of Devon, Cornwall, even into South Wales as well. Temperatures in the south, well, around average for the time of year. Further north, a few degrees lower than this, and it's always going to be feeling colder with those strong winds coming in from the east. We're talking gusts of around 40, 50 miles per hour. As we go into this evening, still wet across eastern parts of Scotland, increasing amounts of snow over modest higher ground. We're talking above 300 metres or so. We could see something a bit wintry. Dry across western parts of Scotland, but across much of the rest of the UK, it's a cloudy, wet and rather blustery end to the day. Even some hill snow across some parts of northern England as well. Watch out with rain across parts of the southwest continuing as we go through the evening and overnight, so we could see some further flooding issues as well. But with most places staying cloudy, wet and quite blustery through the night, it does mean it's going to be relatively mild for most. Generally not not dropping too close to freezing. Just across some parts towards the north, we could see temperatures dropping to around 0, maybe a little bit below in some sheltered areas. Then through tomorrow, well, it's a similar day really. Lots more cloud to come and still plenty more rain as well. Could see some heavy thundery showers pushing into parts of the southwest. Still some strong gusty winds coming in from the east, but they will be gradually easing. And so whilst temperatures on paper look similar to today, it may feel ever so slightly milder.
Thank you, Britain, for making GB News Radio such a huge success. Whether you're in the car, on the go, or listening at home, thank you for choosing us as your radio station.
Good afternoon, this is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. On the M90, traffic flow is severely restricted southbound between Junction 5 and Junction 4 following a significant road traffic collision, causing major delays, so allow extra travel time through the affected area. On the A55, delays are being reported in both directions, with traffic building in several places, suggesting you should take extra care and consider an alternative route if possible. Furthermore, on the trains, Avanti West Coast is currently reporting disruption between Motherwell and Carlisle due to engineering works, while Great Western Railway is experiencing ongoing disruption on some of its routes. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Where it really is.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's now 20 minutes to 1, and do stay with us as we have continued reaction to the Prime Minister's desperate attempt to cling on to his job. Today is a very, very big day in politics.
Yes.
But now for an exclusive.
Yes, absolutely. GB News can exclusively reveal the worst offending sectors of illegal working are... Drum roll, please.
Yeah, you would never guess this. Delivery riders and nail salon workers. They're amongst the most prolific sectors within immigration enforcement, issuing over £130 million in fines.
Yeah, this comes as illegal working raids, arrests and removals reach the highest levels in British history. That's smashing the gangs in full, folks.
Well, joining us now is the senior researcher at the Migration Observatory, Dr. Peter Walsh. Peter, thanks indeed for being with us here this afternoon. A lot of people will have heard anecdotal evidence of illegal workers in these sectors, but now we've got some pretty hard evidence.
Indeed. I would just say, though, we don't actually know just how widespread these issues are. We know the government's been stepping up its raids and, of course, therefore made more arrests. But an interesting question is, well, just how prevalent is unauthorised working of this kind? A bigger question, how many people are there in the UK without lawful residence? And the short answer to that question, of course, is we don't know, but most recent estimates do put that figure in the high hundreds of thousands. These are relatively old estimates. So given that we've had record immigration to the UK after Brexit, that could be 1 million or even more. And from that, you might expect there could be tens of thousands of people employing unauthorised workers and perhaps unauthorised workers in the hundreds of thousands. So it is a big issue. These particular businesses are very much under the spotlight. There is a question about the extent to which these are the biggest ones, because we know, of course, that a lot of this enforcement activity is driven by intelligence that comes from ordinary citizens calling up a hotline. So the true dimensions of this challenge, not exactly clear.
I mean, Peter, we have discussed this ever since they announced that they were smashing the gangs. It doesn't seem to have made even the tiniest dent in the actual problem, though.
Well, in terms of small boat arrivals, which is what Smash the Gangs is all about, you know, this was the second highest year on record last year with 41,000 arrivals, about 60,000 on Labour's watch. Of course, not the record numbers we saw in 2022, but they are climbing up. And when it comes to gig working, when it comes to self-employment, this has actually been a long-standing challenge for the government. And that's because the right to work checks that have to be carried out by employers do not apply to the self-employed and gig workers. I mean, we understand that the government is trying to develop agreements with the big platforms, Deliveroo, Just Eat, Uber, to carry out their own voluntary checks. They're not obligated to, but a change in the law that has taken place is not yet online. And we know there are all sorts of practical challenges with people trading accounts and so on. So we're going to have to wait a little bit longer, I'm afraid, to see the operational detail and to understand whether the government can really grasp the nettle of this issue.
It is a thorny one. We'll keep a close eye on it. But Dr. Peter Walsh, for now, thanks very much indeed for your time.
Thank you. This is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Lots more coming up on today's show. Is it time up for the Prime Minister? Pressure really mounts as he sensationally apologises for believing Peter Mandelson's lies.
Yeah, we'll have much more reaction and indeed analysis on just when or if the Prime Minister might go. That's your latest travel weather forecast.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries, all sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
There's more very heavy rain to come across parts of Spain and Portugal and North Morocco as we head into the weekend. Strong winds continue to be an issue here as well. A bit breezy in the Canaries, but plenty of sunshine here. Things turning a bit brighter in Catalonia, but there's that next zone of wet weather coming into Spain and Portugal. Showery for Italy and some heavy showers for Croatia and the mainland of Greece as well. Generally dry in Cyprus with some hazy sunshine here. The Canaries remain the place to be for dry, sunny weather this weekend.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversations.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Cates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, DC.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it? Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's now 12 minutes to 1 o'clock. And can the Prime Minister possibly cling on to his job? That's the question we're asking today.
Actually asking the question just now before you came back, whether we would employ Peter Mandelson.
I think the answer is no.
No, exactly. You were umming and ahhing a bit there.
Well, no, but that was over his first two resignations we were discussing.
It can happen. Third strike.
I can understand why he was rehired in, what was it, 2003?
Yeah.
I can't understand why he was rehired after the Epstein issue. Now, Keir Starmer has indeed apologised today for believing Peter Mandelson and appointing him, saying that he was misled about the true nature of Mandelson's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein.
Yeah, the scandal has prompted reactions from not just the PM, but opposition leader Kemi Badenoch and Reform UK leader Nigel Farage. So we listen.
I am sorry. Sorry for what was done to you.
This is the biggest scandal in British politics for over 1 century.
And it is not all on Peter Mandelson. It is also on Downing Street. And I think that if it's not Keir Starmer, then it should be Morgan McSweeney. Both of them have a lot to answer for, and both of them are hiding.
Sorry for having believed Mandelson's lies and appointed him.
I don't know how long Starmer will last as Prime Minister. Indeed, I'm very worried about it.
Well, that is what the three leading party leaders had to say. With us in the studio is the assistant content editor at The Spectator, William Atkinson. William, it feels like the Prime Minister is really fighting for his political life.
No, there is the stench of death around his government now. Viewers might be surprised to know that I'm even younger than Tom, but I'm already at the tender age of 26, a veteran of, I think this is my 4th government collapse that I've had to observe as a journalist. So I must say it's all rather wearingly familiar. I mean, the only difference this time, actually, is that, it does very much remind me of the last days of Boris Johnson, MPs standing up in the House of Commons and denouncing the Prime Minister. The drip feed of sort of ever more sort of new stories. It becomes ever more difficult by the day. You have potential successors circling. But, I mean, it's just this time, of course, I was at Conservative Home previously. This time the boot is on the other foot. I was actually in the pub yesterday and I heard somebody with an NHS lanyard sort of complaining about the prospect that Wes Streeting might soon be Prime Minister. And I thought this must have been, what it was like when I was sort of sitting there contemplating my plight, worrying about the imminent ascension of Liz Truss. Actually, it's quite satisfying. But, I mean, if you take a step back, the fact that we're cycling through Prime Ministers and governments at such an alarming rate is a terrible thing for the country. Yeah. It makes us look like a basket case. It makes it impossible for politicians to be able to, grip their departments, outline a vision, actually deliver. And it undermines people's trust with politics. No wonder Reform are doing as well as they are. The Tories came in, they failed, they looked corrupt, they couldn't actually do anything. Labour have come in, they failed, they look corrupt, even faster than the Tories did. And so a plague on both your houses. It's a political system that we see sort of collapsing in front of us, and it's a terrible thing for British democracy.
And the message it's sending abroad as well.
Yeah.
I mean, when sort of like everyone's looking at us and going, certainly America, our special relationship, it's like, well, hold on a minute, what on earth is going on in your country? Look, I'm not saying America isn't up to its eyeballs in this mess as well, but it's like it's not sending a strong message about investing in this country, the growth that we want in this country. No,
exactly. I mean, Keir Starmer's whole sort of sales pitch at the general election a couple of years ago was, I'm boring. I'm offering change from endless Tory psychodrama. Britain is now going to be a bastion of stability, as you say, where investors can flock to. But instead, he's just offered us the exact same. You could, it's like the end of sort of Animal Farm. You look from the sort of pigs to the human beings, and you can't tell the difference between Labour and the Tories. It's just endless political scandal and endless frustration for voters who just want to feel better off. An NHS that works, small boats stopped. But none of that happens because we're talking about Peter Mandelson.
And this is a doom loop, and it's a self-perpetuating doom loop. You have the crisis of Prime Minister after Prime Minister, but Prime Ministers keep falling because they can't get to grip with a country that feels broken to everyone. I mean, this is what, like, Italy was before Maloney, where you just had Prime Minister after Prime Minister after Prime Minister. It's what France has been like in the last few years. Prime Minister after Prime Minister after Prime Minister. I mean, when countries start to break down, whether that's on public policy, on economic policy, when things stop working, the speed at which we jettison leaders picks up. The speed at which leaders make mistakes picks up too. I mean, how does the cycle end?
I don't know. I must admit, I really don't know. It's like that sort of snow, the cliche of a snowball going down a hill, getting bigger and bigger and bigger. We had a cover on this last year at the Specky, and we referred to this sort of phenomenon as sort of Weimar Britain. Yes. And I think that kind of sums up the decadence, really. It's like late Weimar, it's like the late Roman Empire. Yeah. Emperors keep coming and going, governments keep coming and going, and nobody knows what's stable anymore. And the problem is, of course, that if Reform come in 2 or 3 years' time, and they fail just as spectacularly as the two old parties, I really don't know what happens then. Do you end up with Prime Minister Polanski or Prime Minister Tommy Robinson or whatever else, simply because because people have lost trust in politics as it's previously existed. And I think Onward did some polling a year or two ago where they pointed out that about a third of people my age just want a strong leader who can get things done. And as you see, governments of the traditional parties fail over and over again, that sort of argument gets, greater credibility, as horrifying as that is to admit, because politics, as we've seen it as Whitehall inertia and failing public services and endless budgets that just raise taxes for an ever-expanding debt pile, etc., nothing getting built, and so on, just utterly sort of removes your faith in British democracy as it's previously worked. And as I say, it seems like the system is breaking down and God knows what comes next.
Well, on that cheery note, William Atkinson, thanks indeed for being with us here in the studio. My goodness me. Well, continued coverage this afternoon on Good Afternoon Britain and indeed GB News. Might this government collapse sooner than we all think?
And we will be speaking to Kemi Badenoch as well.
Absolutely. That's to come after your latest weather forecast.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello again, very good day to you. This is your GB News weather update coming to you from the Met Office. The largely cloudy, often wet theme looks set to continue as we go through the end of the week and into the weekend. We have low pressure to the southwest of us, and it's this that's driving various secluded fronts across the country, bringing rain at times and also leading to some strong blustery winds across eastern areas. Across the north, we also have some cold air, and so that's bringing increasing amounts of hill snow over modest high ground of both northern England and also Scotland. Watch out for the rain, particularly towards the southwest, as rainfall totals building up as we go through today and into tomorrow could lead to some further flooding in places as well. In the south, staying relatively mild tonight, colder further north and always feeling colder where we have those brisk, strong winds coming in from the east. So a wet start to the day tomorrow for many. Across the southern parts, there will be some breaks in the cloud, but also some heavy bursts to watch out for. Could be some rumbles of thunder as we go into the afternoon as well. Lots of cloud, lots of rain across much of central northern England, Wales and Northern Ireland. A bit of hill snow as well continuing at times. Meanwhile, across Scotland, a bit of a west-east split in the east, feeling cold with those brisk winds coming in, and there'll be some rain, some hill snow around, but a brighter start to the day across the west of Scotland. And actually here, it's going to stay largely dry and largely bright through much of the day, but most places sticking with the often cloudy and rather wet picture. Like I mentioned, some rumbles of thunder possible in the southwest, with the rain turning a bit showery here, less persistent, maybe even a bit of sunshine developing later on across parts of Cornwall and maybe Devon. Temperatures on paper tomorrow are going to be similar to today, but the winds ever so slightly lighter, and so feeling a little bit less raw across some parts towards the northeast in particular. More rain to come for many as we go through the end of the day, something a little bit drier towards the south-southwest at times maybe, but on the whole, really, as we go into this weekend, the cloudy and often wet theme looks set to continue. Bye-bye.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
This year, the adventure of a lifetime could be on us. Courtesy of Riviera Travel, there's a terrific £10,000 holiday for two to be won. Choose from over 30 worldwide destinations like Thailand, South Africa, New Zealand or even Sri Lanka. We'll also boost your bank account with a fabulous £30,000 in tax-free cash.
For a chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB19 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 27th of February. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
And you see, I would have thought that the Starmer business had gone away, right? But it hasn't gone away. It'll always be with you, but you control it very well. Indeed, we should point out that Gareth has his voice coach, Amy, in the studio today, here in case anything goes wrong.
Yeah, it's an ongoing thing, having a stammer. You know, unfortunately, there's no cure for it. But I'm part of a speech therapy programme called the Maguire Programme. Myself and my coach, Amy, is on the same programme, and we help each other. And we learn a new way of breathing, new way of speaking, and most importantly, a new way of tackling the mindsets which come with having a stammer, which is fear. This is my most fearful situation.
But, my friend, when you get up on that stage and you put a microphone in your hand and you sing, are you worried about it then? Does it manifest itself then?
No, I mean, every time I sing, or, you know, I've done big West End shows where I've had to act and, you know, read pages of dialogue.
Yeah.
It's just not an issue because I adopt a different persona. I'm not me. I'm, you know, whatever mask I'm wearing, whatever character I'm playing. I'm really unsure how I'll fare without my top on in this next show that I'm doing, Boy Band in the Buff, but let's see.
What is the stammer caused by then? Because some people, you said it's incurable, so that means that there's actually something, there's an issue.
Yeah, it's certainly a kind of mindset thing. It's actually based upon fear, and you know, we have to sort of retrain ourselves. And you know, if you're scared of heights, for instance, what's the best thing to do? To go to the highest building, and eventually you'll get close to the edge.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's indeed 1 o'clock on Thursday, the 5th of February. I'm Dawn Neeson.
And I'm Tom Harwood.
I am sorry. Sorry for what was done to you. Sorry that so many people with power failed you.
It's still unclear about who he's apologising to. In any case, that shock apology from Sir Keir Starmer. The Prime Minister says sorry for believing Mandelson's lies, as the Tory leader says it shouldn't be all on Peter Mandelson.
It's not all on Peter Mandelson. It is also on Downing Street. And I think that if it's not Keir Starmer, then it should be Morgan McSweeney. Both of them have a lot to answer for, and both of them are hiding.
And Aldrew Mountbatten Windsor has finally packed up and quit Royal Lodge as the Epstein fallout explodes. We'll talk to someone who thinks the pylon says more about modern moral crusades than criminal guilt.
And elsewhere, Nike is under investigation by the US government over claims its diversity schemes discriminated against, white staff, with regulators seeking court powers after the firm failed to hand over documents.
Back here at home, a Welsh school has banned girls from wearing skirts, all in the name of equality, forcing all pupils to wear trousers as parents question the cost, the timing, and even the ideology behind this strange move.
You know what, Tom? I think I've heard this one before. So taking rights away from women and girls, i.e. saying you can't wear a skirt, is for their equality, for the good of the girls and the women.
Right, because it's not like they had to wear skirts. They had the choice of wearing skirts. This is about removing the choice from those girls.
Yeah.
Progress, apparently.
Because it's good for them.
Right.
It's good for you, girls.
Do you know
We're
who
doing
else
it
removed
for you.
choice to wear skirts or even their hair down? It was the IRGC with the Islamic Revolution in Iran. I'm not suggesting we're quite at that stage in Britain, but I mean, my goodness me, where we are in Britain, though.
Yeah, you want to check out the school uniforms as well in Afghanistan. Oh, you can't because they're not allowed to go to school, are they?
Yeah.
For their own good, obviously.
But of course, we will be talking about the Prime Minister, his position. It does seem now a matter of when, not if, this Prime Minister will resign. I can't think of a single person who genuinely believes Keir Starmer will lead the Labour Party into the next election.
It is quite astonishing. Now, lots of you have been getting in touch, and as we always say, we will read as many out as we possibly can. But hundreds of you want to have your say on this subject, so we're going to have a little section where we read as many out as we possibly can in one go. But you're actually, you're freezing the system. There's so many of you getting in touch. And you're all very angry, to be honest with you.
Absolutely. So that is gbnews.com/your say is the way to get involved in the conversation. What do you make of it? Can the Prime Minister possibly cling on? And who do you want to replace him?
OK, get in touch. Scan that QR code thingy. All of that coming up after the news headlines with Sam Francis.
Very good afternoon to you. Leading the news this lunchtime, Sir Keir Starmer has issued a public apology over the Peter Mandelson scandal, saying serious evidence has now emerged that he was misled. Speaking at an event in East Sussex earlier, the Prime Minister said he entered politics out of service and duty, but accused Mandelson of falling far short of that standard. He said while Mandelson's friendship with Jeffrey Epstein was known, no one knew the depth and darkness of the relationship, and claims Mandelson repeatedly downplayed it during vetting. He also told victims of Epstein's abuse he was sorry, saying he regretted believing Mandelson and appointing him.
No one is above accountability. And no one, however well connected, however experienced, however senior, should hold public office if they cannot meet the basic test of honesty. The victims of Epstein have lived with trauma that most of us can barely comprehend. And they've had to relive it again and again. I am sorry. Sorry for what was done to you. Sorry that so many people with power failed you. Sorry for having believed Mandelson's lies and appointed him.
In other news this hour, an inquiry into the deadliest channel crossing on record has concluded that small boat crossings must end, warning some of the 30 people who died could have been saved. The independent probe found systemic failures, missed distress calls and chronic staff shortages in the UK's maritime response. The inquiry's chair, Sir Ross Cranston, says those failures directly contributed to the November 2021 tragedy when an overcrowded inflatable capsized, leaving just 2 survivors. Investigators say a French Navy vessel also failed to respond to a mayday call, while the UK Coast Guard made a series of flawed decisions. The report also describes the response as a significant breakdown by government and made 18 recommendations to prevent another disaster.
The practice of small boat crossings must end. Apart from other reasons, it's imperative to prevent further loss of life. Travelling on board a small, unseaworthy and overcrowded boat and crossing one of the busiest shipping lanes in the world is an inherently dangerous activity.
The Bank of England has held interest rates at 3.75%, keeping them at their lowest level since February 2023. The decision by the Monetary Policy Committee was widely expected today, following a rate cut in December amid weak growth and rising unemployment. Well, the Governor, Andrew Bailey, says inflation is now set to fall back to the bank's 2% target sooner than forecast, calling that good news. Holding the rates means no immediate change for borrowers, though, but mortgage costs could ease later this year, while savers continue to see lower returns. In Wales, Nigel Farage has unveiled Dan Thomas as Reform UK's new Welsh leader. Mr Thomas, who grew up in Wales, was the Conservative leader of Barnet Council from 2019 to 2022 and joined Reform UK in December. Mr Farage says the appointment strengthens Reform's push to challenge Labour in Wales as the party looks to convert frustration over jobs there, living costs and devolution into votes. Mr Thomas said he's joining Reform because he believes the main parties have failed to deliver and that Wales needs a political reset. A ship's captain has been jailed today for 6 years after a container vessel crashed into an oil tanker in the North Sea, killing a crewman. Vladimir Motin was on sole watch when his ship struck the Stena Immaculate near the Humber estuary, triggering a massive explosion. 38-year-old Mark Angelo Peronea died instantly in a fire. His body was never recovered. At the Old Bailey, jurors heard the tanker had been visible on radar for more than half an hour, but Motin failed to take evasive action. Prosecutors said his conduct amounted to gross negligence and that he later lied about what happened. And travellers are being warned to expect long queues at passport control across Europe as the EU is rolling out its new biometric border system. Passengers have already reported hour-long waits at busy airports, with industry groups warning queues could stretch to 5 or possibly 6 hours during peak periods. The European Commission says countries can temporarily suspend the system at busy times until September if delays become unimaginable. The The entry-exit system replaced passport stamps, requiring non-EU travellers to now register fingerprints and facial images. Travel groups are urging passengers, especially families, to plan for delays, particularly over Easter and the upcoming summer holidays. Those are the headlines for now. More news in around half an hour's time.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 8 minutes past 1. Now, Sir Keir Starmer has attempted to apologise for believing Peter Mandelson and appointing him, saying that he was misled about the true nature of Mandelson's relationship with the paedophile Jeffrey Epstein.
The scandal has prompted reactions not just from the PM, but opposition leader Kemi Badenoch and Reform UK leader Nigel Farage.
I am sorry. Sorry for what was done to you.
This is the biggest scandal in British politics for over 1 century.
And it is not all on Peter Mandelson. It is also on Downing Street. And I think that if it's not Keir Starmer, then it should be Morgan McSweeney. Both of them have a lot to answer for, and both of them are hiding.
Sorry for having believed Mandelson's lies and appointed him.
I don't know how long Starmer will last as Prime Minister. Indeed, I'm very worried about it.
Well, our very own political editor, Christopher Hope, has been in East Sussex with the Prime Minister and has the very latest for us.
Sir Keir Starmer came to Hastings to give a speech of what he called the politics of grievance. He wanted to contrast the Labour government with pursuing renewal, not grievance. That's what he's trying to attack, and clear attempt, I think, to take on the politics of Reform UK. But instead, it soon became overtaken by an apology repeatedly for appointing Lord Mandelson, Peter Mandelson, as the ambassador to Washington for the UK. He made clear that in his terms, the PM wasn't aware, he said, of the depth and darkness of that relationship. He said that Mandelson had portrayed Epstein as someone he barely knew when he went through the vetting process to be appointed to that plum Washington job. He said, in this country, we will not look away and shrug our shoulders when we see wrongdoing. He said, and that's why the PM had taken steps to remove Lord Mandelson from that role in Washington. He believed what he said to me, the PM said. I apologise, I regret that, and a clear message there to the victims. The PM has always put victims at the heart of his politics, but this time it seems he let them down. At one point, he said, tomorrow's headlines won't be about this pride of place speech. They certainly won't. Backbench MPs are furious that he allowed his clear issue here by not understanding the issues there with Lord Mandelson, and his judgment failed him. Christopher Hope for GB News in Hastings.
Well, big thanks to Chris for being there as the Prime Minister was fighting for his political life.
Yeah, now, Lord Mandelson has previously denied criminal wrongdoing related to Epstein and has said he relied on assurances of his innocence that turned out later to be horrendously false.
Well, joining us now is the Liberal Democrat MP, Edward Morello. Edward, thanks indeed for being with us here today. It just seems like the most extraordinary time. Let's not forget, Keir Starmer's been Prime Minister for, what, a year and a half? And now, do any of your colleagues in Westminster, on any side of the House, actually believe he's going to last the term in Parliament?
Well, I don't know about lasting the term. It wouldn't surprise me if he manages to struggle on until after the May elections. I think you'd probably be short on volunteers to take over and own that disaster. But the Liberal Democrats today have called for a no-confidence vote in the Prime Minister. It is an opportunity for Labour MPs to let their views be known. And if they do support the Prime Minister, then this government really needs to crack on with the job of improving the lives of the people of Great Britain and dealing with the cost of living crisis. What nobody wants is the repeat of the rolling prime ministers, the political psychodrama that we endured in the tail end of the Conservative government just previously. If they do want a new leader, then that's their opportunity to act.
Edward, what do you make of what you heard in Parliament yesterday? I mean, is our Prime Minister genuinely not understanding what has been told in the past about Mandelson, or is he a liar?
Well, the Foreign Affairs Committee, after Peter Mandelson was removed from the post of Ambassador of Washington, had an inquiry. We had the Cabinet Secretary and the Permanent Secretary of the FCDO appear in front of us and talk us through the process that was gone through in order to come to that appointment. That included the production of a vetting document, a conflict of interest document, a due diligence report. Those reports were then summarised and given by the Cabinet Secretary to the Prime Minister, who ultimately made the final decision. Now, our understanding is that summary included information about the continuing relationship of Mandelson with Jeffrey Epstein. If that is the case, then that shows that the Prime Minister made a serious error of judgment. What the purpose of yesterday's debate was about was to force the government into releasing those documents so that we can make an informed decision on exactly how much the Prime Minister knew when he made the decision to appoint a close and known associate of the paedophile Jeffrey Epstein to our most important foreign affairs role.
Now, of course, as you say, you're calling for this no confidence vote in the Prime Minister. When would you like to see this vote take place? And I mean, previously, when we've had no confidence votes, they can lead to a general election. Is that something you'd like to see?
Well, I think we need to give the Labour Party an opposition to decide how it wants to, an opportunity to decide how it wants to go forward. Does it want Keir Starmer as leader or not? And if it doesn't, then they need to find someone new. And if they can't find anyone new and they feel that they need to take the judgment to the people, then to hold a general election. But we need a mechanism to get over the political stalemate that we have at the moment. There is too much going on in the world and in the UK right now. The last thing anyone wants is a repeat of the psychodrama of the last Conservative government. What we need is lower interest rates, lower energy bills, more food security, and the 101 other things that really affect people's lives. And right now, what we are caught up in is another Westminster drama.
Edward, you are obviously a politician, but you're also a human being. Some of the stuff we are hearing about Epstein and, by extension, Mandelson absolutely turns your stomach. What's your personal reaction?
My personal reaction is the same as the one that I gave yesterday during the debate when I asked the question of the government, what message does it send to the many thousand victims of Jeffrey Epstein and his cabal of paedophile friends, those women that have been abused, raped, sex trafficked? What message does it send that we think it is okay to appoint somebody with a known association to this convicted criminal to our highest position overseas? I think that is completely the wrong statement to send to those victims, and of course to the wider victims around the UK of sex crimes. It's just wrong to say that we will protect, rehabilitate and appoint to a senior position someone who is willing to have an association with someone like this.
Edward Morello, Liberal Democrat MP, thanks indeed for your thoughts this afternoon. Really big goings-on in Westminster.
Yes, indeed. OK, now let's talk to your political commentator, David Wooding. David, good to see you. David, you have covered politics for a very long time. Today, the Prime Minister stood up and once again said he was lied to. What do you make of what you've heard today?
Well, he probably was lied to by Peter Mandelson, but we're also being told in the same breath that the questions which were asked during the vetting process for the ambassador's job were answered truthfully by Peter Mandelson. So what we need to know really is what questions were asked. Did he ask the right questions, or did he brush over it? Because he clearly knew about the relationship with Epstein. And he also knew very well about the shady past of Peter Mandelson, sacked twice from the government and dubbed the Prince of Darkness for very good reason.
I mean, this is the most extraordinary thing, is it not? The words that the Prime Minister have used today in his press conference. He spoke about in the vetting process, and believe it or not, there apparently was a vetting process, where Peter Mandelson was asked about his stay at Epstein's house in New York after Epstein was convicted. Now, the words that the Prime Minister used weren't, he denied it, weren't that he said no, but it was words to the effect of he gave the impression impression that Mandelson barely knew Epstein. Here's the words exactly. Intentionally intended to create the impression that Mandelson barely knew Epstein. Now, that is a long way of not saying no.
Absolutely. And don't forget, Keir Starmer is a lawyer. He's worked in the legal profession for some time, was Director of Public Prosecutions. You'd think he'd have an absolute forensic eye on all the detail of something like this, but apparently not. So is he squirming a little bit around the actuality, or did he omit to ask the most crucial questions? If so, it's massive incompetence, and if not, then he's being a little bit slippery himself.
I mean, now we're told that, yes, it will be looked into, but not all of the details of the messages between Mandelson and his fellow cabinet members will be released, because it's a matter of national security. What's more of a risk to national security than a Prime Minister seemingly enthralled to a man he knows to be in close contact with a convicted paedophile who has links to Russia? I would say that's a hell of a risk to national security.
Absolutely, and that's why so many MPs on the Labour benches, including Angela Rayner, who forced his hand on this, are spitting tax over it. I mean, two MPs, John McDonnell and Rachel Maskell, have as good as called for him to go today. And other MPs talking privately are saying he's in his death spiral now. I mean, this is a bigger scandal than anything we've come across. Certainly in my time, I'm looking back before my time to Profumo, and I think this leaves Profumo in the shadows. It's certainly bigger than the problems Boris Johnson ran into over a piece of cake and a glass of wine, that's for sure.
Well, David Wooding, political commentator, thanks indeed for talking us through what is perhaps the most difficult day of the Prime Minister's premiership since yesterday. Thank you very much indeed. Dawn, I've got an interesting fact for you.
Oh, God.
Keir Starmer has been Prime Minister. No.
Oh, good.
Keir Starmer has been Prime Minister for 2 years and 214 days.
Oh, really?
Rishi Sunak was Prime Minister for 2 years and 254 days.
Right.
So it's in 40 days, Keir Starmer overtakes Rishi Sunak in length of tenure. Do you think he'll make it?
Interesting question. Well, let us know what you think. gbnews.com/your say. Do I think he should make it? Personally, no, I don't. I think he has lied to us, and I think his apology, as many of you are getting in touch, I think his apology to the victims of Epstein, when he doesn't even apologise to the victims of rape and sexual abuse of the grooming gangs in this country, I'm sorry, that just has really annoyed me.
Well, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Lots more still to come.
Yes, we'll debate whether Nike's diversity drive crossed the line and its white staff were discriminated against. But after the break...
Yes, more reaction to Sir Keir Starmer's half apology. Is it a meaningful one for believing Mandelson's lies?
All of that and much more to come, including, I believe, Kemi Babe not coming up with GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Dawdley, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Bold. They are under no illusion. Ray. Are you a human trafficker? Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it. Don't get this on the BBC. Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines. The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it? From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos. What I'm going to do now is they are throwing things out the car as we speak. Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 24 minutes past 1 o'clock. Now, the Reform Party leader, Nigel Farage, has addressed the Mandelson scandal. Let's have a listen.
With ties to Jeffrey Epstein, be able to serve in public office?
Well, I think we all have friends who've become miscreants, disappointed us, let us down. But in this particular case, a very powerful man, convicted of child prostitution, the fact that somebody of Peter Mandelson's level in society chose to continue that relationship after the prison sentence isn't just an error of judgment on Mandelson's part, it's a grave error of judgment on the Prime Minister's behalf too.
I'll come on to the Prime Minister. Your Treasurer, Nick Candy, actually appears in the Epstein files asking for Ghislaine Maxwell's email address. Epstein says he likes him a lot. Given the circumstances here, is his position in the party tenable?
Well, Nick was selling properties. Nick will sell properties to anybody. That's what Nick does. He's done it for decades. He's rather good at it. I'm not worried about that in the least. I'm mentioned 37 times, but mercifully in no negative ways. A lot of people are mentioned in this. Nick is a real estate property salesman. He'll sell properties to anybody that'll buy them. I think this particular one was valued at 39 million.
Do you have confidence now, given what happened yesterday, in the vetting of the review of the vetting process?
Look, we still don't know the full truth. We're going to find out the truth. The Prime Minister tried yesterday to say, well, you can't get any information on national security and you can't get any information on international relations. Then he widened it to, you can't get anything on trade. We were going to be given nothing. And his own backbenchers, led effectively by Angela Rayner, have demanded that that's not the case. So we'll find out more. We'll find out the extent to which Morgan McSweeney and the Prime Minister knew about the ongoing relationship.
Keir Starmer, does the Prime Minister need to go?
What was interesting yesterday was watching the faces of the backbenchers in the Commons. There was almost no support for him at all. I even saw Labour MPs with their eyes shut, just sitting through it, as if saying to themselves, please, can this be over? He is deeply unloved by his own party. He was never loved by the country. He's the most unpopular Prime Minister of modern times. And ultimately, Prime Ministers get things right, they get things wrong. But the reason they become Prime Minister is because people trust their judgment. And his judgment is seriously wrong.
Should he stand down?
He won't stand down voluntarily quickly, but I very much doubt he'll be there in 3 or 4 months' time.
Thank you.
Well, there we go. That's Nigel Farage's assessment. But let's get the assessment of the editorial director of the Guido Fawkes website, Adam Cherry. Adam, will the Prime Minister last 4-5 months, as Nigel Farage was saying?
Oh, that's a good question. If I were a betting man, I would say probably not. I think this is terminal now. And, we've had several scandals. I think there's been one scandal every day, basically, since this man took office 18 months ago. But this feels like the end times here, because his backbenchers are in open revolt. His chief of staff is on the ropes. And we reported that just last night. They were in the bunker. They're in bunker mode last night, trying to figure out how to get out of this thing. My colleague Max Young explains on Guy Fawkes' site. And I'd be very surprised, as Nigel Farage said there, if he staggers on, certainly most beyond the locals anyway. I mean, that's going to be an absolute car crash for Labour on May the 7th. So after that, what else is there?
Adam, 2 points. One, I don't want the person who's supposedly running this country in bunker mode trying to work out how to dig himself out of the hole he has dug himself. I would quite like him to be running the country. And Nigel Farage pointed out there that the people around him in the House yesterday had their arms folded and they looked angry. And it's not just backbenchers. Angela Rayner, as well, is leading the revolt against the Prime Minister.
Yeah, she really flexed her muscles yesterday and proved how powerful she is within the PLP and beyond that, the membership. And Starmer knows that. I mean, another U-turn, of course. They U-turned yesterday on the evidence they were going to provide publicly. It's now going to go to the Intelligence Committee. They were initially going to try and withhold some of that, as you heard Nigel Farage discuss just there. Look, this is what I also don't understand from today's press conference. You heard it earlier today, of course, in the last couple of hours. He expects the public to just acknowledge that or go along with the idea that Starmer believed Mandelson when Mandelson said that he barely knew Jeffrey Epstein. There is reams of publicly available material to the contrary and has been for several years. You must think that the public is full of galactic-level chumps to believe this, because the amount of material that disproves it, as we've just reported on the site today, my colleague Ellie Wheatley, in 2019, it was revealed in a Channel 4 documentary that Peter Mandelson had called Jeffrey Epstein whilst he was still behind bars to arrange a meeting with a top banker, with Jeffrey Diamond, whilst he was still in the cabinet. Now that was publicly available. So all this, these new lines he's spinning today just do not wash. And again, I think point to a tailspin for his premiership.
It does feel like the power is rapidly slipping away from the Prime Minister. I mean, we could have had this same conversation towards the tail end of last year. A Prime Minister who won 411 seats at the last election, losing significant votes in the House of Commons. I don't see how he gets anything controversial through the Commons at all now. This is a man with no authority, which leads me to ask you, Adam, I mean, who replaces him? People have thrown about names, but of course, Angela Rayner is still disgraced. Wes Streeting himself was close to Peter Mandelson. I mean, we might as well start talking about Basil Brush, Donald Duck or Shrek the Ogre.
Absolutely. I'm afraid that it looks to me like they've got very few options. Shrek the Ogre might be a decent one, but it looks to me like it might be Ed Miliband. Now, he's saying privately and publicly he doesn't want the job. He tried that in 2015 and it didn't go well. But if you look at the other contenders, well, Angela Rayner still has serious questions to answer over her tax affairs. OK, she's popular with the membership and popular with the PLP, but in a general election, she would struggle. Wes Streeting probably will lose his seat. He only got elected on a majority of, 500 odd, and that will inevitably go down in the next general election. So Ed Miliband, who, is still the darling of the Labour leadership, of the Labour membership, and crucially doesn't have any connection to the Mandelson stink, is perhaps best positioned to take on the mantle. Now, of course, he also has the issue of defending his own seat, but then again, there's no such thing as a safe seat in politics nowadays. So I would look to him, to be honest, even if he says publicly that it's not going to be him. Of course, Angela Rayner and Wes Streeting would like it to be otherwise, but that's my guess at this point.
OK. Well, Adam Cherry, thanks indeed for being there for us, editorial director at the Guy Fawkes website.
We've got some breaking news for you. Let's cross live to St Albans Crown Court, where as an Iranian asylum seeker who came to the UK illegally on the back of a lorry in July 2024 has been sentenced to 7.5 years for sexually assaulting a teenage girl.
Well, our very own national reporter Will Godley is at the scene for us. Will, what can you tell us?
Well, Tom Dawn, Justice handing down that sentence in the last few minutes, told the Iranian asylum seeker Ahmed Raza Khalafi when he acted on that day, he was a predator. He saw someone who was vulnerable and took advantage of her. Now, this assault took place in spring last year and was against a 19-year-old girl who was on a night out with her friends, and after she'd finished at the club, they were playing a innocent game of hide and seek. They were playing that game in Bishop Stortford's with their friends. The girl was hiding in a bush when Khalafi approached her, a 29-year-old man from Iran. He then sexually assaulted her over 10 to 12 minutes, and in court today we saw CCTV footage of that assault. Khalafi previously pleaded guilty to 4 counts of sexual assault, and the victim in this horrific attack has bravely waived her right to anonymity. She has previously spoken to GBNews about why she wanted to do that. Her name is Abby Johnson. She is 19 years old, and at the end of last year she spoke to Patrick Christie's.
I have nothing to be ashamed about. I can't change what happened to me whatsoever, but if I can just do a little bit to save someone else from going through what I went through, then I will do that. And also, he hasn't seen me since. I haven't had my voice, I haven't been able to tell my story, but this has given me the chance to feel that I can get my voice out there, and you know, he can see who he's done it to, who he's hurt, whose life he has affected. You know, he'll get out, he'll get benefits, he'll get housed, he'll get everything handed to him, and I get absolutely nothing. I just get a lifelong worth of trauma that I have to deal with for the rest of my life, and he doesn't have to go through any of that, which I think is so unfair. But if I can get my face and my voice out there and tell people what has happened to me and what he has done, then I will do that, and hopefully save someone else from going through what I went through.
Well, Abby Johnson was in court today, bravely facing her perpetrator and also bravely reading out a victim impact statement, telling the court what this assault, the impact of it had on her. She told the court she now feels scared in her own home, how she struggles to sleep, and how she now experiences ongoing depression and at times feels suicidal. She said she no longer recognises herself and is disconnected to the person she was before this. Well, Khalafi's defence was speaking in court, trying to mitigate his actions, and his lawyer, Joe Davidson, told the judge how he remains very much a foreigner and is someone who is not accustomed to alcohol and Western norms. How he went on to say the defendant has very little formal education and very little understanding of what is acceptable, an acceptable way to behave in England. Well, the judge ruled that he does pose a further risk to women, and that he was not entirely persuaded. He doesn't know the difference between right and wrong. Today, handing him a 7.5-year sentence. Khalafi will serve 4.5 years of that in custody, and then will be on licence for a further 3 years.
Will Godley, thank you very much indeed. Just an extraordinary story there, and yet another defence for an illegal migrant who claims they didn't know Western norms when assaulting a young girl.
And fair play to Abby for speaking out. She has done nothing wrong. So absolutely, Abby, well done. Good on you. You are an incredibly brave, courageous young woman. You should live your life proudly, unlike that piece of filth. Abby's serving a life sentence. He's got 7.5 years. Go figure.
Well, there's lots still to come on today's programme.
Yeah, we'll debate whether Nike's diversity drive crossed the line and if white staff were discriminated against.
All of that and much more on the position of the Prime Minister too. You're with GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello, very good day to you. This is your GB News weather update coming to you from the Met Office. Lots more cloudy, wet weather to come as we go through today for many of us, and even some hill snow across northern parts as well. Watch out for some strong blustery winds as well. There is an area of low pressure to the southwest of us. This was named Storm Leonardo by the Portuguese Met Office. Now, it's not going to bring us stormy weather, but nonetheless it is fairly unsettled. And like I say, a lot of cloud around for most of us, just some glimmers of sunshine towards the northwest of Scotland, and plenty of rain. Rainfall totals building up across parts of the southwest in particular, likely to see some flooding across parts of Devon, Cornwall, even into South Wales as well. Temperatures in the south, well, around average for the time of year. Further north, a few degrees lower than this, and it's always going to be feeling colder with those strong winds coming in from the east. We're talking gusts of around 40, 50 miles per hour. As we go into this evening, still wet across eastern parts of Scotland, increasing amounts of snow over modest higher ground. We're talking above 300 metres or so. We could see something a bit wintry. Dry across western parts of Scotland, but across much of the rest of the UK, it's a cloudy, wet and rather blustery end to the day. Even some hill snow across some parts of northern England as well. Watch out with rain across parts of the southwest continuing as we go through the evening and overnight, so we could see some further flooding issues as well. But with most places staying cloudy, wet and quite blustery through the night, it does mean it's going to be relatively mild for most. Generally not dropping too close to freezing. Just across some parts towards the north, we could see temperatures dropping to around 0, maybe a little bit below in some sheltered areas. Then through tomorrow, well, it's a similar day really. Lots more cloud to come and still plenty more rain as well. Could see some heavy thundery showers pushing into parts of the southwest. Still some strong gusty winds coming in from the east, but they will be gradually easing. And so whilst temperatures on paper look similar to today, it may feel ever so slightly milder.
Thank you, Britain, for helping us reach 10 million followers across social media. We are truly honoured to have your trust, one follower at a time.
Good afternoon, this is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. Road users should take extra care on the A898 Erskine Bridge, where high winds are significantly making driving conditions tricky, especially for high-sided vehicles vulnerable to gusts. Also affected by strong winds is the A55 at Britannia Bridge, with hazardous crosswinds forecast to continue until further notice, so allow more time and keep both hands firmly on the wheel. And on the trains, Avanti West Coast is reporting disruption between Motherwell and Carlisle, while Great Western Railway has disruption impacting some routes, so check before you travel. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's now 20 minutes to 2 o'clock.
Yeah, now Nike is facing serious questions after the US government launched an investigation into its diversity programs.
Well, regulators are examining claims that the sportswear giant discriminated against white employees, with politicians and campaigners now demanding answers.
So, does Nike have an anti-white bias?
Well, joining us is the podcaster and commentator Sunil Sharma and the director of Voice for Change England, Kuneli Oluwode. Sunil, let's start with you. What do you make of this story?
Yeah, I think it's absolutely crazy that we're seeing outright clear discrimination towards a set of people. I just want to flip the roles for a minute in specific with what Nike have been allegedly done. If we said Nike were deliberately deciding to hire more white people, or they were saying that, you know, we should fire more black or brown people to keep more of Nike white, you can almost guarantee what the public outcry would be. You can almost guarantee what every newspaper headline would say, which is Nike are being racist. They're not just being discriminatory, they're also being racist. It seems as if white people is the only race of people where racism it doesn't matter. It's not included. You can be racist to black people, brown people. But the idea that Nike have been pushing their management, be pushing their staff on these quota systems for certain racial groups to either keep their jobs or for them to be promoted, to me that's outright discrimination and racism. And it's also incredibly degrading to black and brown people. They should not need quotas or any of this or any leg ups to get a promotion or to be saving in their job. If you've got a job on the basis of your skin color, that must be so demoralizing and so unfair on all the other people who've worked just as hard. It should be based on merit. But I think this is a broader question, which is, are we allowed, does racism occur to white people? And I think racism occurs to anyone, and it can happen to anyone, but it seems as if in the last maybe 5 or 6 years, you can't be racist to white people. And I think you look at these policies, I don't know what other word we can use.
Kinley, what do you make of it?
I think, first of all, we are talking about an investigation, so nothing's been proved. But we also have to look at the differences between the UK and America. In America, positive discrimination is legal. In Britain, it's not. So there is a different value system in terms of the law and employment law. And I think we need to also, probably without having the information to hand, have some insight into what was Nike's reasoning in wanting to adopt these policies, if so proved. Because in most DEI situations, what you would do is a diagnostic of the strengths and weaknesses of the organization in terms of equalities policy, and find out where they've been falling down, where they're actually succeeding. And then you would create a plan to address those. We need to know a bit more information. The other thing that I'd also question is, why is it that it's the government, the American presidency, that's actually interfering in the operations of a private company? For me, that's a bit worrying.
Kunle, just on that point, positive discrimination is not legal in the United States. Under the Civil Rights Act 1964, Title VII, I think it is, it explicitly says you cannot hire on the basis of race. Now, there's a separate doctrine called disparate impact, which was legislated for later, and that means that you need to try and make your outcomes more equal, but even though that doctrine exists, you cannot make your outcomes more equal by specifically hiring on the basis of race.
And if you actually look at that policy, you would see alongside that sits a thing called positive action. The fine points of the distinction between positive action and positive discrimination are marginal. And yet that is also not only been used in America, but it's also been used here. So I would actually push back against that, because in terms of the practicalities and realities, those discrimination policies have been used for decades.
Well, this is a point of contention, is it not? Because there was a Supreme Court ruling, I think about 2 or 3 years ago, that actually pointed this out. Harvard was selecting on the basis of race, it turned out, and that was overturned. That policy was pushed back because of that decision in the Supreme Court, because you're right to some extent. I mean, it's a very confusing legislative environment where the Civil Rights Act made this illegal. Subsequent decisions tried to say, well, you have to get to a certain ends, but you're not allowed to use a certain means. I mean, it is a mess, but ultimately, recent Supreme Court decisions would suggest that this is absolutely illegal.
Kunle, sorry to interrupt you, Kunle. I just want to say, surely everybody, regardless of their skin colour, wants to be hired for their talents rather because they tick a box.
I think I would agree with that. But that precludes the idea that actually there aren't some weaknesses and deficiencies, a historical legacy of discrimination within Nike that they're attempting to address, which is why I'd like to know a bit more about the reasoning by why have they decided to actually adopt those policies. You can't just throw the baby out with bathwater and just say that all DI policies are bad. There are reasons why companies do this kind of stuff. And I think normally they're historical.
OK, Sunil, just come back to you quickly. And finally, I think Nike have also got into trouble in the past for allegedly discriminating against women by hiring transgender people to model female clothing. What would you say to that?
I personally think all DI policies are bad. I don't see any merit in them. I think they've been created by a select group of people to virtue signaling. And we're talking about Nike's prehistoric references when it comes to color. Their number one ambassador, their most successful person in the history of Nike is a black man, Michael Jordan, and rightly so, because he brought in the most amount of revenue. That's the reason he's the number one sportsman of Nike's history. And that's got absolutely nothing to do with his skin color. It's just because he was the greatest ever basketball player. So I think that we can sit here and talk about legislation and what exactly is in USA, but I think there's a difference between right and wrong. Hiring people on merit is right. Hiring people on color is wrong. And I think it's really, really that straightforward and simple.
OK, Sunil and Kunle, thank you both so much for joining us today.
That's the fascinating thing. Originally, the legislation was absolutely that, and over decades and years, it became muddled.
Yes, OK. Nike has said it provided thousands of documents and written responses to the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission and would continue to cooperate with the investigation.
They said this feels like a surprising and unusual escalation. We've had extensive good faith participation in an EEOC inquiry. Our personal practices, programmes and decisions have had ongoing efforts to provide information and engage constructively with the agency.
OK. This is Good Afternoon Britain on GBNews. Lots more coming up on today's show.
Yes, a Welsh school bans girls from wearing skirts, all in the name of equality. Well, we'll ask whether this is fairness or ideology gone too far.
But before all of that, let's have a quick break to find out what the holiday forecast is like for you.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries, all sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
There's more very heavy rain to come across parts of Spain and Portugal and North Morocco as we head into the weekend. Strong winds continue to be an issue here as well. A bit breezy in the Canaries, but plenty of sunshine here. Things turning a bit brighter in Catalonia, but there's that next zone of wet weather coming into Spain and Portugal. Showery for Italy and some heavy showers for Croatia and the mainland of Greece as well. Generally dry in Cyprus with some hazy sunshine here. The Canaries remain the place to be for dry, sunny weather this weekend.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Join me, Nana Akua, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg and this is GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
We're sort of all looking on here, hoping this story is right.
I think we've all got a little way to go yet, but apparently the Super 60s, we reach our creative peak at the age of 67, so we've all got ages to go. But what's surprising in this report is who's already 67? Madonna. 67. Yeah. Kevin Bacon, Tim Burton, I could kind of understand, Gary Oldman, maybe, but there's loads of people out there that are already in their creative zenith. They're already putting out more than they ever done before. 63% feel more creative than when they were in their 30s.
Madonna's past her peak. She's not producing or letting anything else.
I'll let you have Liam Gallagher.
I'm not letting you have Madonna, Tim.
I am.
No,
Madonna's
you're not.
still very raunchy and sexy and somebody that I could...
At 67, have you seen the pictures of her recently?
Yes,
no
I
way. No way.
Well, also, Paul Weller's in that category as well, and he's still producing.
Super sexy.
Yeah.
But the report says that at 67, you're obviously mainly starting to retire or take a step back. That's when your creative juices flow.
Well,
Gary you take up something new, like learning a new language, going to concerts more. So something to look forward to in your 60s.
Well, I think it's very true, because I do think, I mean, speaking from experience, I think that this country is ageist, is absolutely ageist, and sort of our industry is ageist.
Which is ironic, because we do have money to spend, you know. We're actually, well, a little bit more than somebody that's Generation X and Z, that only 25% haven't had a drink in the last 12 months. At least our 56-year-olds still drink.
GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's just gone 10 to 2. Now, do stay with us. We're going to have much more on the scandal engulfing the Prime Minister. We're going to be hearing, well, we're going to be sitting down with Kemi Badenoch just at the top of the next hour.
Yes, and lots of you are getting in touch. We will read your messages out. Lots of you are getting in touch, in particular about Keir Starmer apologising, saying that apologies should only be made when you actually believe that you are sorry for doing something or saying something. And he's apologising to the victims of Epstein in America. Lots of you are pointing out, and I completely agree with you. What about apologising to the victims of people being illegally entering the UK? We had that awful story just now of Abby Johnson raped by an illegal migrant. What about apologising to the likes of Abby? When's that going to happen?
But in the meantime, a Welsh secondary school is scrapping skirts in the name of equality, with all pupils now required to wear trousers.
They say it saves money and reflects modern values, but some parents call it wasteful, sparking a wider row over gender-neutral uniforms in schools.
Well, in a letter announcing the decision to parents, the school said a single streamlined uniform reduces pressure on families, removes unnecessary distractions and ensures every pupil can feel comfortable and confident. This is a positive step forward for Brain Teg, the school, simpler for parents and carers, more practical for pupils and fully in keeping with inclusive values we stand for.
Oh, just stick your inclusivity, will you? If a girl wants to wear a skirt or a boy wants to wear a skirt for school, let them.
Right, this is the thing.
What's wrong with it?
This is... The thing, they're making this sound like it's a step forward for equality. Girls weren't forbidden from wearing trousers. No. Girls were allowed to wear trousers. Girls had a choice. In the world I grew up in, choice is a good thing.
Ah, not if you're a girl. This is where you went wrong, because you are a boy.
Am I?
So, yeah, well...
Wow. Well, does Keir Starmer think...
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
We know what Keir Starmer thinks. But basically, this is done in the name of equality for young women by taking away their right to wear a skirt.
It's completely nuts.
How does that make sense?
The equal thing here is to allow the girls, frankly, all the pupils, to choose... there are no words for this. I don't understand how this is supposed to help anyone. It's going against tradition as well, which is not particularly good.
This is Good Afternoon, Britain. And this GB News. Donald Trump is speaking live. We'll bring you that first after the weather.
He said, where? National Prayer Breakfast. I said, I'll be there. I'm afraid not to be.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello again, very good day to you. This is your GB News weather update coming to you from the Met Office. The largely cloudy, often wet theme looks set to continue as we go through the end of the week and into the weekend. We have low pressure to the southwest of us, and it's this that's driving various occluded fronts across the country, bringing rain at times and also leading to some strong blustery winds across eastern areas. Across the north, we also have some cold air, and so that's bringing increasing amounts of hill snow over modest high ground of both northern England and also Scotland. Watch out for the rain, particularly towards the southwest, as rainfall totals building up as we go through today and into tomorrow could lead to some further flooding in places as well. In the south, staying relatively mild tonight, colder further north and always feeling colder where we have those brisk, strong winds coming in from the east. So a wet start to the day tomorrow for many. Across the southern parts, there will be some breaks in the cloud, but also some heavy bursts to watch out for. Could be some rumbles of thunder as we go into the afternoon as well. Lots of cloud, lots of rain across much of central northern England, Wales and Northern Ireland. A bit of hill snow as well continuing at times. Meanwhile, across Scotland, a bit of a west-east split in the east, feeling cold with those brisk winds coming in, and there'll be some rain, some hill snow around, but a brighter start to the day across the west of Scotland. And actually here, it's going to stay largely dry and largely bright through much of the day, but most places sticking with the often cloudy and rather wet picture. Like I mentioned, some rumbles of thunder possible in the southwest, with the rain turning a bit showery here, less persistent, maybe even a bit of sunshine developing later on across parts of Cornwall and maybe Devon. Temperatures on paper tomorrow are going to be similar to today, but the winds ever so slightly lighter, and so feeling a little bit less raw across some parts towards the northeast in particular. More rain to come for many as we go through the end of the day, something a little bit drier towards the south-southwest at times maybe, but on the whole, really, as we go into this weekend, the cloudy and often wet theme looks set to continue. Bye-bye.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
We
we want you to set off on the destination of your dreams this year, as you could win an incredible holiday for two worth £10,000. Courtesy of Riviera Travel, you'll get to choose from 47 tours in over 30 worldwide destinations. We'll also give you £30,000 in tax-free cash to make sure you really make a splash this summer.
For a chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB19 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 27th of February. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, this is Jubes & Co with you.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie is here to GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection. Tune in to GB News, anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 2 o'clock on Thursday, the 5th of February. I'm Tom Harwood.
And I'm Dawn Neeson.
I am sorry. Sorry for what was done to you. Sorry that so many people with power failed you.
A shock apology from Sir Keir Starmer. The Prime Minister says he's sorry for believing Mandelson's lies, as the Tory leader says it shouldn't be all on Peter Mandelson.
It's not all on Peter Mandelson. It is also on Downing Street. And I think that if it's not Keir Starmer, then it should be Morgan McSweeney. Both of them have a lot to answer for, and both of them are hiding.
And Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor has finally packed up and quit Royal Lodge as the Epstein fallout explodes yet again. We'll talk to someone who thinks the pylon says more about modern moral crusades than criminal guilt. Well, a big day, as I said last hour, perhaps the most difficult day in Keir Starmer's premiership since the last one.
Yeah, yesterday, basically. I mean, he does have a lot of difficult days, doesn't he? He's only been in power just over 18 months now, and we've already had 15 U-turns. I've lost count of how many difficult days, but this one is, it really could bring this government down. There is much more to come.
Looking at what Labour MPs were saying yesterday, because there have been a lot of times where opposition MPs have been rightly criticising this government and all the rest of it, the fact now that Labour MPs are standing up on the green benches of the House of Commons and tearing into their own government,
yes,
it really does feel like end-of-days stuff. This is not a Prime Minister who any longer has moral authority over his party or even any sense of authority at all. I mean, how is he going to pass any kind of contentious legislation? I mean, the man, he can no longer govern.
Yeah, well, exactly. I mean, well, let us know what you think, gbnews.com/your say. I mean, Keir Starmer gave a press conference this morning about uniting the country and how we're all doing terribly well or something or other. I say something or other because I wasn't taking any notice, because I was reading and trying to dig down into what was actually happening with this government when it comes to Mandelson and Epstein. He could get up there and say whatever he wants now. None of you, I don't think, are going to take a blind bit of notice now, which begs the question, how can somebody who has no credibility run a country? You don't want him running a bath, do you, to be honest with you?
I mean, this is the crazy thing, right? He defined himself as the morality police, quite frankly. He defined himself as cleaner than clean, as whiter than white, as the most upstanding politician.
He said he wanted to be boring.
He was, yeah, absolutely.
Proud to be boring.
It was going to be stable, boring, no whiff of scandal at all. This was going to be the cleanest government we've seen to date. And what's happened in the last 18 months?
Yes, indeed. Let us know what you think. In the case, gbnews.com/your say, or scan that QR code thingy. Now, all of that coming up in any case after the news headlines with Sam Francis.
Very good afternoon to you. Fast approaching 4 minutes past 2. The top story this hour, Sir Keir Starmer has issued a public apology over the Peter Mandelson scandal, saying serious evidence has now emerged that he was misled. Speaking at an event in East Sussex earlier, the Prime Minister said he entered politics out of service and duty, but accused Mandelson of falling far short of that standard. He said while Mandelson's friendship with Jeffrey Epstein was known, no one knew the depth and darkness of the relationship, and claims Mandelson repeatedly downplayed it during vetting. He told victims of Epstein's abuse he was sorry, saying he regretted believing Mandelson and appointing him.
No one is above accountability. And no one, however well connected, however experienced, however senior, should hold public office if they cannot meet the basic test of honesty. The victims of Epstein have lived with trauma that most of us can barely comprehend. And they've had to relive it again and again. I am sorry. Sorry for what was done to you. Sorry that so many people with power failed you. Sorry for having believed Mandelson's lies and appointed him.
An inquiry into the deadliest Channel crossing on record has concluded that small boat crossings must end, warning some of the 30 people who died could have been saved. The independent probe found systemic failures, missed distress calls and chronic staff shortages in the UK's maritime response. The inquiry's chair, Sir Ross Cranston, says those failures directly contributed to the November 2021 tragedy, when an overcrowded inflatable dinghy capsized, leaving just 2 survivors. Investigators say a French Navy vessel also failed to respond to a Mayday call, while the UK Coast Guard made a series of flawed decisions, including ending the search too early. The report describes the response as a significant breakdown by the government and made 18 recommendations to prevent another disaster.
The practice of small boat crossings must end. Apart from other reasons, it's imperative to prevent further loss of life. Travelling on board a small, unseaworthy and overcrowded boat and crossing one of the busiest shipping lanes in the world is an inherently dangerous activity.
The Bank of England has held interest rates at 3.75% today, keeping them at their lowest level since February 2023. The decision by the Monetary Policy Committee was widely expected following a rate cut in December amid weak growth and rising unemployment. The Governor, Andrew Bailey, says inflation is now set to fall back to the bank's 2% target sooner than forecast, and said that is good news. Holding the rates means no immediate change for borrowers, though, but mortgage costs could ease further later this year, while savers continue to see lower returns. Nigel Farage has unveiled Dan Thomas as Reform UK's new leader in Wales. Mr Thomas, who grew up in Wales, was the Conservative leader of Barnet Council from 2019 to 2022 and joined Reform UK in December. Mr Farage says the appointment strengthens Reform's push to challenge Labour in Wales as the party looks to convert frustration over jobs, living costs and devolution into votes. Mr Thomas said he is joining Reform because he believes the main parties have failed to deliver and that Wales, he says, needs a political reset. A ship's captain has been jailed today for 6 years after a container vessel crashed into an oil tanker in the North Sea, killing a crewman. Vladimir Motin was on sole watch when his ship struck the Stena Immaculate near the Humber estuary, triggering a massive explosion. 38-year-old Mark Angelo Pernia died instantly in the fire. His body was never recovered. At the Old Bailey, jurors heard the tanker had been visible on radar for more than half an hour before the incident, but Motin failed to take evasive action. Prosecutors said his conduct amounted to gross negligence and that he later lied about what happened. And travellers are being warned to expect long queues at passport control across Europe as the EU rolls out its new biometric border system. Passengers have already reported hour-long waits at busy airports, with industry groups now warning queues could stretch for up to 5, possibly 6 hours during peak holiday periods. The European Commission says countries can temporarily suspend the system if it's busy until September, if delays become unmanageable. The entry-exit system replaced passport stamps, requiring non-EU travellers to register fingerprints and a facial image. Traveller groups are now urging passengers, especially families, to plan for delays, particularly over Easter and the summer. Those are the latest headlines for now. More in half an hour.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 8 minutes past 2. Now, Sir Keir Starmer has attempted to apologise for believing Peter Mandelson and appointing him, saying he was misled about the true nature of Mandelson's relationship with the paedophile Jeffrey Epstein.
GB News has spoken to Conservative Party leader Kemi Badenoch. Have a listen to what she had to say.
Kemi Badenoch, a huge moment in Parliament yesterday when you seemed to force an admission from the Prime Minister that he knew that Mandelson had continued his relationship with Epstein even after he'd been convicted. But today, he's saying that he's clarifying that, and he simply means that he knew that they'd known each other and that, in fact, that he believed that Mandelson had barely known him. What's going on here?
This is complete nonsense, and everybody knows it. I asked him a very specific question yesterday about whether or not the information about the continued relationship was in the security vetting, and he said yes. This stuff was on Google for people who were looking. So for him to pretend that he didn't know, when the FT said to him directly in 2024, long before the appointment, that Mandelson continued this relationship, it's just not true. And I'm shocked that he's playing the victim now, saying, oh, I'm just like you guys, I was lied to by Peter Mandelson, I didn't know. The fact is he should be apologising for appointing that man despite the security advice and vetting information which he saw. That's what people want to see. But he is so self-righteous, he cannot bring himself to do that.
Well, he has apologised this morning to Epstein's victims for making that appointment. Was enough thought given to them, though, at the time? I mean, what message does it send to them that Mandelson was appointed? And this is a Prime Minister that has pledged to halve violence against women and girls.
They didn't care. Let's be honest, they didn't care, and all these pledges.
They didn't care about the victims.
No, I don't think they cared how it would look. I don't think they were even thinking about it. I think a lot of these pronouncements about violence against women and girls are lip service. Let's remember, this is a man who couldn't define what a woman was not that long ago. This is a man who was saying no to a national inquiry on the rape gangs. This is something that we see again and again. It's very easy to publish strategies and consultations about violence against women and girls, but it's what you do in the moment when you have a decision in your hands. It's how you behave. That's the thing that makes the difference.
You've said that somebody needs to go. It's clear that the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff, Morgan McSweeney, pushed this appointment. Sue Gray hadn't wanted it. She would have been quite happy for Karen Pierce to stay on. If Morgan McSweeney goes, is that going to be sufficient, do you think, to save the Prime Minister's skin going forward after May?
Well, it depends on exactly what we see in these files. I do think someone needs to take responsibility. Someone needs to go. But I'm not interested in the Prime Minister's job security. What I'm interested in is what's happening in our country. And what I was saying today earlier in my speech is that Britain is not being governed. Nothing is happening. Despite their huge majority, they're not doing anything. We have a plan. They could work with us on a plan. How do we make energy costs lower? We've got a plan for that. We've got a plan to save the high street, abolishing business rates. Let's get rid of stamp duty, get the housing market moving. Let's leave the ECHR. Borders need to be controlled, public order. There's so much that could be happening. Nothing's happening. And all we're talking about is should Keir Starmer stay in his job, or what's happening on May the 7th, and who's going to win and have more council. The country is not being governed, and I'm worried about that.
You are inviting, though, Labour MPs to have a vote of no confidence in the Prime Minister, potentially change leader. The Tories did that. Is that really your advice? Because isn't it a case of be careful what you wish for? That could go very badly wrong, could it not?
Well, I know that Keir Starmer being there is already going very badly wrong. And when we felt there was an issue with the leader in the country wasn't being governed, we made a change. People may agree or disagree with what that change was or how it was done. But I don't think we should just sit back and say, well, no, there's nothing we can do. Let's just allow Keir Starmer to do whatever he likes. What we do know is that Labour MPs aren't going to vote for a general election because most of them will lose their seats. We're stuck with Labour until 2029. They should be thinking, how can we do better? And what I'm saying to them is, this can be better. If you think that there's something that we can do to help, come to our whip's office, let's have a conversation.
And just finally, Donald Tusk has talked about the possibility that Epstein could have been working for Russia. We heard that from Sir Ed Davey, the Lib Dem leader in the Commons, yesterday. How seriously do you take that possibility?
I think it's very possible. It needs to be proven, of course, but there's a lot of circumstantial evidence that certainly points to that. The nature of the photos being taken, it looking like compromat. Lots of people are having these discussions. So I think it is very possible, and that's why this needs to be looked at thoroughly. There are hearings taking place in the US. Our police are now conducting a criminal investigation specifically into Peter Mandelson, not Jeffrey Epstein. I think that we should look at every single possibility to make sure that justice is done.
And just finally, do you think that Peter Mandelson could be heading to jail?
I don't want to say anything that could prejudice that case. I'm glad the police have opened an investigation, and if there is evidence and he's prosecuted, let's see where that goes. But right now, I think that Peter Mandelson will be dealt with appropriately. What I'm concerned about is that the Prime Minister who appointed him, a catastrophic error of judgment, is now pretending that he was just lied to and he didn't know. He's making bad decision after bad decision after bad decision that is impacting people out there, your viewers, our families and friends. Our country is not being governed.
Kemi Badenoch, thank you very much for talking to us on GB News. Thank you.
Very, very strong words from Conservative Party leader Kemi Badenoch there, talking to our chief political correspondent, Catherine Forster. Catherine joins us now. Catherine, I think they were very, very strong and seemingly heartfelt words from Kemi there.
Yes, there really were, and she's not pulling any punches. Bad decision after bad decision after bad decision. She says that the Prime Minister's made and that effectively Britain is not being governed because they are so busy working out how to deal with the latest crisis. And, of course, we've had several of them, this, of course, being the most significant. She was absolutely excoriating about the Prime Minister and the fact that today he has, in inverted commas, clarified what was said yesterday and is effectively just saying that he believed that the lies he was told, that Mandelson barely knew Jeffrey Epstein, despite tons of evidence that he knew him very well and had continued that relationship after he'd been freed from jail, that were publicly available and, in fact, that we know that would have been given to the Prime Minister. I do think that is quite extraordinary. And also on his position on women more broadly, we know that we're told that halving violence against women and girls in a decade is a priority for the government, something that the Prime Minister feels very passionately about. But she pointed out, of course, the failure that there has been. There is a grooming gangs investigation now up and running. But she said, you know, this is a man that didn't even know what a woman was. And on the Epstein victims, she basically said that they obviously hadn't cared what it looked like to them, hadn't thought about them when they were appointing Mandelson. Look, it's clear that despite her calls for Labour MPs to go to Tory whips and bring a vote of no confidence, she doesn't really want a general election now, I don't think, nor is that likely to happen. She did actually say we're stuck with Labour till 2029. But it's clear that, I think, despite what happened with changing leaders with the Conservatives and the huge trouble that it got them into, she does seem to be encouraging Labour MPs to think about taking out the Prime Minister.
It does seem like it is increasingly likely that the Prime Minister will be taken out. I suppose, Catherine, just finally, looking at the timeline of when that might happen, I mean, if you were a scheming backbench Labour MP who wanted to defenestrate your leader, surely you'd wait until after either the by-election or the local elections to do so.
You would think so. I mean, I still feel that the most likely time would be after the May local elections, which are widely expected to be disastrous. But the fundamental problem that they have is, I mean, so many Labour MPs see their seats vanishing at the next election and want to get rid of Sir Keir Starmer. But the basic problem that they have is that they don't have any agreement of who to put in his place. We know that Wes Streeting had a very, very close relationship with Mandelson, who mentored him. His fiancée, I think, has been deleting information off his Facebook post. We know that Angela Rayner's still got that $40,000 in unpaid stamp duty. That is still hanging over her. And, well, Andy Burnham, he was blocked, wasn't he? So Andy Burnham is, for the meantime, out of the picture.
OK, well, Catherine Forster, thanks indeed for being there for us and conducting that interview with the Leader of the Opposition.
I thought Kemi was very strong in the House yesterday, questioning Keir Starmer, and actually got the action that we all needed to see. And lots of you are getting in touch over this situation. Yeah. And where is it? Rosemary. Rosemary, you've summed up literally what everybody who is messaging in has been saying. Rosemary says, simply, I do not believe a word Keir Starmer says. And so many people are agreeing with that sentiment in one way or another. And sort of like Steve has said, we need a general election now. Joe says the country currently has no government. Something has to happen sharpish. And that was the point Kemi made there. All the while, Keir Starmer is running around like a headless chicken trying to get himself out of the hole he has dug. Who's running the country?
Although it is important to note that if a vote of no confidence were to happen in the government, that doesn't necessarily mean that the Parliament would fall.
No, of course.
And I think it's unlikely that we'll get a confidence vote, despite the wishes of the Conservative Party and the Liberal Democrats. But I mean, entertaining this for a second, if the government was voted no confidence in, then it would be up to the King to select a new Prime Minister. A Prime Minister who would have to carry the confidence of a majority of Parliament and the vast majority of Parliament are Labour MPs. In effect, it would kick a leadership election into the Labour Party.
Yeah, and I think Catherine was right just then. It won't happen until May, because get that mess out of the way when we know that Labour are going to do even worse than they were going to do because of this situation.
The one argument against that, though, is if you're a Labour MP and you've got friends who are councillors, you think there are good people on your team in the Senedd, in the Scottish Parliament, in all of the English councils that are up for election. I mean, wouldn't you want to save their jobs? think that a new leader might be able to at least stem the bleeding?
I mean, who knows? I mean, there's a lot of... You could see from those pictures from the chamber yesterday, lots and lots of very angry people on those Labour benches. I mean, literally, it was like arms folded, glaring at their boss.
Well, let's speak now to the former editor of the Labour List website, Peter Edwards. Peter, this is a very difficult day for Keir Starmer.
Good afternoon. Yeah, it's been a disastrous week for Labour, and it's important to be honest about that. Our first thoughts should be, of course, with the victims of Epstein's wicked crimes, but as every broadcaster has said, there are political consequences as well, and that's why the Prime Minister was right to give that apology this morning. Clearly, Epstein's victims are distressed, and MPs in the Parliamentary Labour Party are pretty angry. We'll have to see what impact that apology has, but I do think Keir Starmer should stay in post, even though there have been a series of mistakes.
I mean, Peter, this is... I mean, if you just delve a little bit into the Epstein files, this is incredibly sleazy, really sleazy. I mean, I don't think I've ever covered anything quite as bad as this in all the years that I've been covering politics. Does Starmer have to go, whether it's after the May elections or in the next year? Does he have to go? Can he survive governing not only his own party, who don't believe a word he says now, but the country?
Well, the Epstein files are dreadful and distressing, and I think, you know, we've all been horrified by what we've read, and that's why I think everyone is right to stress the importance of the victims. Do people believe Keir Starmer? Yes, I think they do. I think the Parliamentary Labour Party, because we're not, as Kemi Badenoch said to Catherine, we're not about to have a general election. The Parliamentary Labour Party, particularly backbenches and some ministers, are angry with the PM. This is because of a judgment failure, as they would put it. No one suggested that the Prime Minister's not been truthful. Peter Mandelson has been called a liar left, right and centre. What the Prime Minister is accused of is making a poor judgment, and clearly that's why he apologised this morning. Was ostensibly going to be a policy event that's been dominated by this ongoing row. I think the Prime Minister was right to apologise, and I think no one underestimates how serious this is. The public are sick of it. It's a very serious question at the heart of it about sexual abuse of women and children over many years by late Jeffrey Epstein. But Prime Ministers have come through scandals before. Yes, this is a mess and very distressing, but I do believe Keir Starmer, having won a general election, began to introduce some changes over the last year and a half, does deserve to stay on, and I hope he does.
But what is the point in the brand of Keir Starmer if his reputation for propriety and ethics and all the reasons why he was presented as such a change from the mess of the tail end of the last government, if all of that is shot, surely he doesn't have a leg to stand on. Surely he can't take the Labour Party into the next general election. I mean, the reason why he was in the position that he is in now, that seems to have all melted away.
We've got to be clear what we're talking about. You know, it is a mess, and it would be daft to deny that. But Lord Mandelson has been accused of lying. The Prime Minister has not been accused of lying.
On that point, Peter, I think that there are some people who've said the Prime Minister was less than truthful in what he said this morning. He was talking about the vetting procedure that Mandelson went through, and he was said that he was asked, did he stay in the house of Epstein after the conviction? Now, he didn't say no, but he did sort of use incredibly lawyerly language. He tried to sort of obfuscate the idea, a non-denial denial. I mean, you could argue that that's not, strictly speaking, untruthful, but it certainly is attempting to give an impression that is other than the truth.
I think the Prime Minister is truthful. I saw the apology on your tape. I saw the apology that Keir Starmer gave this morning. I've not seen all of his comments, but I think what you're alluding to really is about what's going to happen next in this pretty unhappy saga, which is the publication of more information about the vetting process that Lord Mandelson went through. And it's clear now, I mean, I suspect it was pretty obvious at the time, but it's clear now the vetting process seems to have been pretty quick, and by definition it's been totally ineffective, because the Prime Minister, having appointed Lord Mandelson to Washington as our ambassador, now says it was a mistake and the wrong thing to do. So I think by definition almost the vetting process failed, but we're going to get the detail of how that happened.
OK, Peter, thank you very much. That's former editor of Labour List, Peter Edwards. Unfortunately, we have run out of time with Peter. So many questions I personally have for him. OK, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. There's lots more coming up on today's show.
Yes, Prince Andrew quits Royal Lodge as at last as the latest Epstein scandal flares again. We'll speak to a guest who says that Prince Andrew's pile-on has gone too far. But after the break...
Yes, more reaction to Sir Keir Starmer's apology for believing Mandelson's lies.
All of that and more to come. You're with GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Co weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's just coming up to 2:30.
Now, Sir Keir Starmer has apologised for, in his words, believing Peter Mandelson and appointing him, saying he was misled about the true nature of Mandelson's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein.
Yeah, the scandal has prompted reactions not just from the Prime Minister, but opposition leader Kemi Badenoch and Reform UK leader Nigel Farage. Have a listen.
I am sorry. Sorry for what was done to you.
This is the biggest scandal in British politics for over 1 century.
It is not all on Peter Mandelson. It is also on Downing Street. And I think that if it's not Keir Starmer, then it should be Morgan McSweeney. Both of them have a lot to answer for, and both of them are hiding.
Sorry for having believed Mandelson's lies and appointed him.
I don't know how long Starmer will last as Prime Minister. Indeed, I'm very worried about it.
Well, joining us now is the chief political commentator at the I newspaper, Kitty Donaldson. Kitty, I know you speak all the time to Labour MPs. I mean, frankly, what is the mood of the backbenchers?
Well, it's calmed down a little bit today because there's not so much going on. People are going back to their constituencies, but last night it was absolutely terrible. I've not seen anything like it in this Parliament, actually, since they were elected in 2024. I've been told about MPs weeping with frustration at how Keir Starmer behaved when he finally admitted in the Commons that he had known about Mandelson's links to Epstein after he was convicted. There was a sort of mixture between a gasp and a sort of stunned silence, if that makes sense. And MPs just like shocked, Labour MPs shocked, and the Tories. I was actually happened to sit next to one of Kemi Badenoch's aides up in the press gallery. We sit above the MPs and looking down upon them. And this aide beetled out, and he just paused as he left, and he said, "That's it. We've got them," because I think they realised then that this was sort of catastrophic for Starmer, and of course, as you've seen, Kemi Badenoch's been making hay out of it ever since.
Rightly so, making hay, Kitty. I mean, it was obviously an open goal, and Kemi certainly scored. But can you believe? I mean, you're very experienced in reporting on politics. Can you actually believe what you were witnessing yesterday? The body language of the Labour benches was quite astonishing.
Yeah, I couldn't. And then afterwards, I went downstairs and talked to lots of Labour MPs, lots of Tories as well, and they were sort of gathered in knots, knots of people just sort of baffled and trying to work out what had just happened, and there were the Tories were sort of quite glib about it and quite happy, but people were comparing it to the fracking vote. Do you remember that one, which down Liz Truss? And then later on in the day, people were kind of comparing it to Chris Pincher, who was the kind of unknown when he was caught allegedly sexually assaulting someone, and Boris Johnson stood up for him. That was when MPs knew that Boris Johnson's regime was over. So they were comparing it to that. It was kind of like the thing that they weren't quite expecting that possibly brings down Keir Starmer.
OK, Kitty, thank you very much. That's Chief Political Commentator at the I paper, Kitty Donaldson, there for you.
Wow, huge events there in Westminster. Lots more still to come on today's programme.
Yes, Prince Andrew quits Royal Lodge at last as the Epstein scandal flares again. We'll speak to a guest, though, who says the former Prince pylon has just gone a little bit too far.
Well, all of that and more to come. You're with GB News, Britain's #1 news channel.
Hello, very good day to you. This is your GB News weather update coming to you from the Met Office. Lots more cloudy, wet weather to come as we go through today for many of us, and even some hill snow across northern parts as well. Watch out for some strong blustery winds as well. There is an area of low pressure to the southwest of us. This was named Storm Leonardo by the Portuguese Met Office. Now, it's not going to bring us stormy weather, but nonetheless it is fairly unsettled. And like I say, a lot of cloud around for most of us, just some glimmers of sunshine towards the northwest of Scotland, and plenty of rain. Rainfall totals building up across parts of the southwest in particular, likely to see some flooding across parts of Devon, Cornwall, even into South Wales as well. Temperatures in the south, well, around average for the time of year. Further north, a few degrees lower than this, and it's always going to be feeling colder with those strong winds coming in from the east. We're talking gusts of around 40, 50 miles per hour. As we go into this evening, still wet across eastern parts of Scotland, increasing amounts of snow over modest higher ground. We're talking above 300 metres or so. We could see something a bit wintry. Dry across western parts of Scotland, but across much of the rest of the UK, it's a cloudy, wet and rather blustery end to the day. Even some hill snow across some parts of northern England as well. Watch out with rain across parts of the southwest continuing as we go through the evening and overnight, so we could see some further flooding issues as well. But with most places staying cloudy, wet and quite blustery through the night, it does mean it's going to be relatively mild for most. Generally not dropping too close to freezing. Just across some parts towards the north, we could see temperatures dropping to around 0, maybe a little bit below in some sheltered areas. Then through tomorrow, well, it's a similar day really. Lots more cloud to come and still plenty more rain as well. Could see some heavy thundery showers pushing into parts of the southwest. Still some strong gusty winds coming in from the east, but they will be gradually easing, and so whilst temperatures on paper look similar to today, it may feel ever so slightly milder.
Thank you to our global community for watching and listening to GB News. We're not only the #1 news channel in Britain, we're chosen by you, around the world.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. High winds are causing issues on the A92 Tay Road Bridge, banning double-deck vehicles with a 30 miles per hour restriction. The A55 Britannia Bridge faces delays until further notice. In Bedfordshire, Northamptonshire's M1 northbound between junctions 10 and 11 is shut after a collision, with normal conditions expected around 4:15. In Devon, the A38 westbound has lane closures after a crash, clearing around 2. And on the trains, Avanti West Coast is disrupted between Lockerbie and Carlisle and the Elizabeth line through Whitechapel. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Hello, welcome back. It is now 37 minutes past 2, and I do that because I know it annoys you. But, OK, let's cross it live to St Albans Crown Court as an Iranian asylum seeker who came to the UK illegally on the back of a lorry in July 2024 has been sentenced to 7.5 years for sexually assaulting a teenage girl.
Well, our national reporter Will Godley is there at the court for us with the latest. Will, what happened today?
Well, Tom Dawn, that sentence handed down here in St Albans Crown Court, and the details of this sexual assault were shared. This assault happened in the spring of last year when the victim was playing hide and seek with her friends in Bishop Stortford. She hid in a bush after a night out when they were playing this game, and she thought the person approaching her was one of her friends coming to find her. But it was not. It was an Iranian man called Ahmedraza Khalafi, a 29-year-old man who approached her and sexually assaulted her. In court today, we saw CCTV footage of that sexual assault, which lasted for between 10 and 12 minutes. The judge ruled the assault was forceful and aggressive and told Khalafi when he sentenced him that he was a predator and took advantage of a vulnerable woman. Well, the victim has bravely chosen to waive her right to anonymity. Her name is Abby Johnson, a 19-year-old woman. And upon when Khalafi pleaded guilty to 4 counts of sexual assault in December last year, she spoke to GB News' Patrick Christie's.
I have nothing to be ashamed about. I can't change what happened to me whatsoever. But if I can just do a little bit to save someone else from going through what I went through, then I will do that. And also, he hasn't seen me since. I haven't had my voice. I haven't been able to tell my story. But this has given me the chance to feel that I can get my voice out there, and, you know, he can see who he's done it to, who he's hurt, whose life he has affected. You know, he'll get out. He'll get benefits, he'll get housed, he'll get everything handed to him, and I get absolutely nothing. I just get a lifelong worth of trauma that I have to deal with for the rest of my life, and he doesn't have to go through any of that, which I think is so unfair. But if I can get my face and my voice out there and tell people what has happened to me and what he has done, then I will do that and hopefully save someone else from going through what I went through.
Well, in the last few minutes, Detective Sergeant Adam Haynes from Hertfordshire Police has paid tribute to Abby, commending the courage she has shown throughout this ordeal. And Abby was in court earlier today, bravely facing Khalafi and telling him about the impact of the assault that has had on her. She told the court today how she feels scared in her own home, how she struggles to sleep, and how she now experiences ongoing depression and at times feels suicidal. Well, Khalafi's lawyer, trying to mitigate what he did, told the court he has very little formal education and very little cultural understanding of what is acceptable in England. Well, the judge today decided that he wasn't entirely persuaded. He didn't know the difference between right and wrong. Also decided that he could pose a further risk to women, sentencing him to 7.5 years. 4.5 of those years will be served in prison, 3 further years on licence.
Well, Will Godley, just the most extraordinary story. Thank you for being there for us and, frankly, for sitting through that. That must have been a fairly tough feat.
And fair play to young Abby, 19 years old. Her life is ruined. She's been very, very bravely speaking out, saying she has done nothing wrong. And she has done nothing wrong, and she's speaking out, and absolutely fair play to her. And for the judge to say that he is a danger, that the filth that did this is a danger to women, and they get 7.5 years.
Yeah. And that his defence
Which should be out in half of that.
And that his defence argues he's not accustomed to Western norms, to Western laws.
No, cultural issues.
As if you can get away with breaking our laws and assaulting girls in this country because you're not used to our laws.
As we said last week, Tom, when you and I were covering the murder of and the sentencing of her attacker, Rhiannon White, how many more girls? How many more girls before someone does something to stop this?
We're going to move on now. It's 19 minutes to 3 o'clock. Now, the columnist Annabel Denham has voiced concern over social media's role in fueling public outrage and mob behaviour following the latest claims of Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor's links to Jeffrey Epstein.
She suggests that while images of Andrew in a compromising position may reflect poor judgment and arrogance, they do not necessarily indicate criminal behaviour.
Well, joining us now is the columnist and deputy comment editor at The Telegraph, Annabel Denham. Annabel, it's a strident view to put out. Why did you write the column?
Well, I accept, Tom, that I'm quite a lone voice in this, but I just feel deeply uncomfortable and uneasy when I see some of the images of Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor coming out and the pitchfork crowd denigrating him with great glee, and just this sort of alacrity with which we generally try to tear down public figures in Britain today, and what that really says about our society. I feel a modicum of sympathy for Andrew. Let's not forget that he's never been charged or convicted of anything in UK laws. So really, I'm just questioning what the illegality is there. And whilst he may strike many as an odious and arrogant and boorish figure, I don't know that that necessarily justifies the sort of mobbish glee and schadenfreude that so many people seem to feel about his slow and rather torturous defenestration.
Annabel, if, as you say, there is nothing to hide and he hasn't, as you say, been convicted of any wrongdoing, why doesn't he simply go to America and testify before Congress, as he's been asked to do?
Well, I personally think that that would be a mistake. I suspect that at the moment he landed on US soil, he'd be arrested on some sort of trumped-up charge. He'd probably face civil suits, some of which may be spurious. So I don't think he should be testifying before Congress, which is, I think, increasingly resembling kangaroo court. And for him to do so would be enormously embarrassing for the palace. Let's not forget that the king took that very drastic action towards the end of last year in stripping Andrew of all of his baubles in the hope that that would once and for all put this matter to bed. Well, it's done nothing of the sort, has it? Out of sight is not out of mind, and people are still demanding more. You know, I hear people saying that it's not even enough that he's been booted out of Windsor and sent off to Norfolk. They actually want him to leave the country. Well, where do they suppose that the late Queen's son goes? I just feel as though everybody is sort of, you know, enjoying this spectacle rather too much, and the clamour for more just seems to be loudening, and we're almost at risk of losing sort of sense of reason about it.
Annabel, Annabel, what do you think the king should have done? Just ignored it?
I personally don't think that he should have stripped him of all of his titles. It struck me as very harsh for him to have done so. And my suspicion, I don't know, is that he wouldn't have done this without the green light from his siblings. So, you know, Andrew really has been entirely ostracised, not just by British society. And this is a society that, let's not forget, once celebrated him. And actually, we affectionately called him Randy Andy, and we lifted him up, and he was this Falklands War hero, which must make his downfall downfall all the more painful. But it isn't just society, British society, but it's also his family. And I cannot stand, actually, how his daughters have been dragged into all of this. You know, just behaving, strikes me at least, entirely reasonably, visiting a friend of their father's without giving it much more thought.
Well, of course, that friend of their father's turned out to be a convicted paedophile. But Annabelle Denham, I'm sure a lot of people will have a lot to say about your points of view there. gbnews.com/your say. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much, Annabelle. This is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Lots more coming up on today's show.
Yes, more reaction to Sir Keir Starmer's apology for believing Mandelson's lies. That's his words.
But if you are in search of some holiday sun, here's your forecast.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
There's more very heavy rain to come across parts of Spain and Portugal and North Morocco as we head into the weekend. Strong winds continue to be an issue here as well. A bit breezy in the Canaries, but plenty of sunshine here. Things turning a bit brighter in Catalonia, but there's that next zone of wet weather coming into Spain and Portugal. Showery for Italy and some heavy showers for Croatia and the mainland of Greece as well. Generally dry in Cyprus with some hazy sunshine here. The Canaries remain the place to be for dry, sunny weather this weekend.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact that Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, DC.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Bold. They are under no illusion.
Ray, are you a human trafficker?
Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get this on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline.
Should we be worried about it? From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
I'm going to do now, they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/your say. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/your say, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akua, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's now 10 minutes to 3 o'clock. And the question we're asking today is this the beginning of the end for Keir Starmer? Can the Prime Minister cling on much longer after the scandal that seems to have engulfed his premiership.
Yeah, with his help, by the way. It just didn't, accidentally engulf it. It just kind of had a bit of help along the way of doing the engulfing bit. In any case, let's talk to political commentator Matthew Stadman. Matthew, good to see you. Where do you want to start? What do you make of Keir Starmer saying today he was sorry?
Well, he didn't quite say sorry for his own misjudgment, as far as I could tell. Correct me if I'm wrong. But I certainly think he should say sorry for his misjudgment. I remember thinking myself at the time that this was a rather extraordinary appointment. And in my view, unfortunately, it shows bad judgment by the Prime Minister.
I mean, the most extraordinary thing about his apology, sorry that I was lied to, in effect, almost presenting himself as the victim here.
It was public knowledge, I think we can all accept now, that at the time of the appointment, we knew, didn't we, that Mandelson had continued a relationship, a friendship of sorts, association, whatever it was thought of at the time, with someone who was convicted of effectively paedophilia, right?
Yeah.
And that is just a mind-blowing appointment for the role, a very, very distinguished role of ambassador to the United States. Now, I will just say this. There's a lot of outrage at the moment. There's a lot of outrage and disappointment on the left of politics as well as on the right. But last year, just as an example, Michael Gove, now editor of The Spectator, and a famous person on the right, and I'm just going to read you this here. A headline in the Times, Michael Gove, why Peter Mandelson is the best choice to handle Trump. Give you another headline. This was from December of 2024, around the time that Mandelson was announced as ambassador. I don't know whether it was immediately before the announcement or after. Dan Hodges in the Mail. Ruthless, cynical and cunning, why Mandy is the perfect choice as US ambassador. That was the headline to his piece.
Matthew, no one is denying that Peter Mandelson is a smart, bright and well-networked operator. The thing that Hodges, Gove and everyone else didn't have, though, was access to the vetting material that the Prime Minister had access to. The Prime Minister had to make a judgment. Do we want an effective ambassador, or do we want to care more about the victims of Jeffrey Epstein? It seems like he did the former and hoped he could get away with it.
The point I'm making is it was public knowledge, not just to the Prime Minister, but to commentators as well, to everyone, if they cared to look. It was available, the knowledge that he'd maintained.
We hear you. Matthew Stadman, thanks very much. I'm afraid that's the end of the programme. Martin Daubney's next.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello again, very good day to you. This is your GB News weather update coming to you from the Met Office. The largely cloudy, often wet theme looks set to continue as we go through the end of the week and into the weekend. We have low pressure to the southwest of us, and it's this that's driving various occluded fronts across the country, bringing rain at times and also leading to some strong blustery winds across eastern areas. Across the north, we also have some cold air, and so that's bringing increasing amounts of hill snow over modest high ground of both northern England and also Scotland. Watch out for the rain, particularly towards the southwest, as rainfall totals building up as we go through today and into tomorrow could lead to some further flooding in places as well. In the south, staying relatively mild tonight, colder further north and always feeling colder where we have those brisk, strong winds coming in from the east. So a wet start to the day tomorrow for many. Across the southern parts, there will be some breaks in the cloud, but also some heavy bursts to watch out for. Could be some rumbles of thunder as we go into the afternoon as well. Lots of cloud, lots of rain across much of central northern England, Wales and Northern Ireland. A bit of hill snow as well, continuing at times. Meanwhile, across Scotland, a bit of a west-east split in the east, feeling cold with those brisk winds coming in, and there'll be some rain, some hill snow around, but a brighter start to the day across the west of Scotland. And actually here, it's going to stay largely dry and largely bright through much of the day, but most places sticking with the often cloudy and rather wet picture. Like I mentioned, some rumbles of thunder possible in the southwest, with the rain turning a bit showery here, less persistent, maybe even a bit of sunshine developing later on across parts of Cornwall and maybe Devon. Temperatures on paper tomorrow are going to be similar to today, but the the winds ever so slightly lighter, and so feeling a little bit less raw across some parts towards the northeast in particular. More rain to come for many as we go through the end of the day. Something a little bit drier towards the south-southwest at times maybe, but on the whole, really, as we go into this weekend, the cloudy and often wet theme looks set to continue. Bye-bye.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
This year, the adventure of a lifetime could be on us. Courtesy of Riviera Travel, there's a terrific £10,000 holiday for two to be won. Choose from over 30 worldwide destinations like Thailand, South Africa, New Zealand or even Sri Lanka. We'll also boost your bank account with a fabulous £30,000 in tax-free cash.
For a chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB19 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 27th of February. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
The Football Safety app is obviously, does exactly what it says on the tin. You're going to a football match, and you got to remember, football doesn't start when you're actually in the stadium. It starts when you leave your house and you're going to a game. So you can report in stuff, whether you're on a train, whether you're travelling, whether you're walking to a stadium, anything that's happening in and around you. We all know that sometimes it can get a bit rowdy on the trains. I've been there before, stuck on the train before, and sometimes you struggle to report it. And this is a way of reporting what's going on and reporting it to police.
And Emile, have you ever been a victim of all of this?
Well, I've obviously had racial abuse at stadiums while playing, etc.
You know what's sad? The fact that you said obviously.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's just awful that it's obviously.
The interesting thing with that is I made my debut at 17. And we know what's going on, we see it, I've had it, and by the time I was finished, when I was playing, I was thinking, by the time I finished playing, it would change. It probably hasn't, it's probably just morphed into something else. We have the ability to get a hold of anyone, any time in our hands, with our mobile phones, with social media, with the social media companies. So it's just morphed into something else where we get a lot of abuse. We see it with the lads playing in the missing penalties, and then suddenly they're getting abused, etc. But that's still happening in the stadium, and it's not just racial abuse, it's bullying, it's sexual harassment, it's all sorts of harassment.
And all these things would qualify to be reported
in the app. You basically just report, you can just click a button and it's instant.
GB News, the People's Channel.
A really important thing about